Okay, shalom to all the viewers, and I thank you for tuning in again for another powerful.
7. There will be mountains I would have to climb, and there will be battles I would have to fight. But victory or defeat, yeah, it's up to me to decide. But how can I expect to win if I never try? I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I've started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe He's brought me this far to leave me. Never said there wouldn't be trials, never said I wouldn't fall, never said that everything would go the way I wanted to go. But when my back is against the wall and I feel all hope is gone, I just lift my head up to the sky and say, help me to be strong. Oh, I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe He's brought me this far to leave me. No, you didn't bring me out here to leave me lonely, even when I can't see clearly. I know that You are with me, so I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe He's brought me this far to leave me. You did not create me to worry. You did not create me to fear. But You created me to worship daily. So I'ma leave it all right here. My hands are raised because I surrender. Your will is what's best for me. I worship You because You're Jehovah Jireh. I bow before the King of Kings. No more crying, no more complaining. I believe Your word is true. Lord, You promised never to leave me lonely, so this is what I'm going to do. I will trust in You, Lord. I will trust in You, Lord. I will put my trust in You. I will trust
love as I have loved you. What does that really mean? Sometimes it's hard to understand what Jesus meant when he said it, because in the world that we live in, people love us based on circumstance or preference. Like, if I like what you like, you'll like me. Or if I do what you do, you'll accept me. Yet the one that should have rejected me because I wasn't at all like him didn't. Matter of fact, in spite of my imperfections, failures, and flaws, Christ saw something in me that was worth reconciling back to him. So it's no longer I who live, but he who lives through me, and gives me the courage to fearlessly love you, despite what you do to me, or how you treat me, at my job, at my school, at my church, even in my own family. So let's not view each other in light of our earthly stature, but more as Christ's ambassadors, showing the world that we who are once blinded to this love have tasted this love and lived to share his love. I believe this, and only this, will help put an end to hate and animosity. It ain't no wishful thinking, man. It's his philosophy. And prayerfully, it's our democracy. That if we did, it would change everything.
All right, greetings, my brothers and sisters, heirs, joint heirs, everybody. Just so glad to be here. It is Labor Day weekend, and we wanted to come to you, not playing with a long playlist before we come up, but we wanted to come because we titled this COVID-19 Second Wave, Nothing New Under the Sun. That's our title for just discussion. No Bible lesson. We're just going to have some discussion tonight. Let me tell you why I want to have this discussion, because mainly one of the things that gets people is that sometimes we don't look at history as a means of looking at how to handle things. And I handle history for particular purposes, and that's to see how things will play out. Because one thing about history, there's nothing new under the sun. The scriptures tells us that there's nothing new under the sun. And the Bible tells us we have such a great cloud of witnesses that we can go back and look to see how things are done, to know how things are going to be played out. So before we get into our discussion tonight, I want to be having some interaction from you. But before we get into our discussion, I want to recognize some people in the chat room. I want to say hello to Queen Cleo. How you doing, my sister? I want to say hello to, let me see what else do we have in here. Let me just say, grab some stuff here so I can see it properly. Here we go. Come on. I want to make sure I can do this before I can. All right, Queen Cleo, how you doing? Sister Linda Vickers, how you doing? Hope everything's going well with you, your niece, and we're still rejoicing over that. Sister Marie, how you doing, my sister? I hope everything is well with you. If you can pass a message to Sister Barbara Benton, tell her everything came through well. And thank you very much. She'll know what I'm talking about. Brother Abraham, how you doing, my brother? Sister KT, how you doing, my sister? That's my brother and sister up in St. Mary's, Georgia. Sister Tara Lynn Larkins up in Gainesville, Florida. How you doing, my sister? So let's get started here so we can have some discussion here. I'm just trying to move my comments so I can do some other stuff. Brother Mark P., how you doing? How you doing, my brother? And Brother Rick, how you doing, Brother Rick? I hope everything's well with you. So if y'all can hear me well, okay, give me some thumbs up. I know I got music playing in the background, but we just chilling tonight. That's all. It's Sunday night. I'm off tomorrow, and we're just going to be chilling tonight. So give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay and everything's going well with that. I would really appreciate it. Let's get into our discussion tonight. COVID-19 second wave. As you all know, the government is in the process of opening up. And when it does that, when the government does that and the government decides to open up, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that everything is positive and it's okay to do that. I really do. I think there's nothing wrong with the government opening back up. Thank you all. Brother Andrew Brown, how you doing, my brother? So let's talk about this for a second. One of the things that you need to realize is that we need to use history for information, and there's nothing. That's wisdom. That's wisdom, brothers and sisters. So when you use wisdom what it does, it allows you to look at how things went in the past. You do that for a particular reason, and that's to let you see trends and patterns, okay? And we're going to talk about some trends and patterns. Grocery stores use that today. Grocery stores can tell what to stock their stores with based upon what was done in the past. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how you do it. You just look at how things were done in the past, and that's how you do it. You know how to stock the stores. You know what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, when you go in the store, Super Bowl, they put everything out front based upon last year's sales. Okay, so that's how they do it. Even in church marketing, we do the same thing. We try to put things out there that's based upon a demand, what people want. Even in Bethel, we try to say, what is trending? What can we do? What strategies can we put together to best reach our people? Speaking of which, let me leave this with you all, and don't go nowhere. I'll be right back. If you have not gotten our phone app, you want to get our phone app. That's a quick way of getting on top of things. You'll get push notifications. Like when I came on tonight, I sent something to everybody to let you know I was coming out. So let's talk about trend. Here's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the fact that this government wants to open back up, okay? And when this government opens back up, everybody wants to rush. They want to go to the malls. They missed it. And people want to get back to, and I understand people want to get back to work. I understand Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, people working in the restaurant and the hotel industry are hurting. People have gotten laid off. And I'm okay with that. I certainly understand that. So I'm not being critical of government opening up. I'm simply saying to you that you need to maintain being cautious. You got to still have your mask on. You still got to have your gloves. Life in America and worldwide is going to change because these pandemics are going to continue to come because of things that's happening. Now, I'm not giving this to you from a prophetic standpoint. I'm giving it to you from a common sense standpoint. When I put inside of the title that there's going to be a second wave, What do I base that upon? I'm not telling people, oh, when you read the scriptures and I'm trying to fit something in to make it work, and these are the plagues and this is the first plague. I'm not doing all of that, okay? God gives us better wisdom than that. So let's look. I want to bring up some things that has happened in the past, and I kind of brought some things in. I want to show you so that you can kind of get a good idea of what's going to happen. And why do I say a second wave? In 1918, they had the Spanish flu. And I told you that we were going to talk about this in this week to come. And I said, let me get something prepared so we can talk about it, and so you can be well informed as to what I base information off of. So first of all, let me tell you, in 1918, there was the Spanish flu. So why do I say every 100 years? Because in 1820, you had another pandemic that hit the world. It was called the Blue Plague or the Bubonic Plague or whatever they call it. It wiped people out. Their numbers wasn't as statistically, how can I put it, coordinated. So a lot of people questioned the numbers. But in 1918, that was during the industrialization movement. Countries were talking, people were communicating a lot. You had the cruise ships going about. You had international travel. You had a lot more things that were in play. They were not as modern as they are today, but those agencies still existed back then. Customs was back then. So a lot of things they kept track and kept numbers on, okay? So in 1918, 500 million people were affected with the Spanish flu. Now, the Spanish flu is also known as the swine flu, and 50 million people died, 675,000 in the United States. Why do I say that a pandemic is happening every 100 years? Because there is a record, but not a substantive record, that back in the early 1700s, there was another plague. So every 100 years, we have a plague. Now, I wanted to show you some pictures because you're going to see that there's nothing new under the sun. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that we have over here that I put up for you. Listen to this. This is, look at this where it says second wave. Second wave. That was the 1918 Spanish flu. Why did they call it the 1918? Why did they call it the Spanish flu, where it really originally was called the swine flu? Because it came from swines. And that's pigs, brothers and sisters. That's where it came from. You see the tents, and they're just quarantining people. This is nothing new. None of this is anything new. Look at the picture where it says, we learned from the Spanish flu. I mean, these are actual photos that they had back in 1918 that people, this is on the international level, that you can kind of see what was happening with this Spanish flu. They had so many people, they converted warehouses into hospitals. This is not, doesn't it sound familiar with what we're dealing with today? They didn't have ventilators. So a lot of people died, you know. So look at this. I mean, I'm going to show you some newspaper articles here's the long lines. People couldn't go inside buildings at the same time. Look at your first responders here. Look at your military. Look at the mask. So everybody walking around with masks today, if you don't study history, and we tend to put ourselves in the box where we are now as if this is the first time this has ever happened. Okay? And so it's not. It's not the first time. So I want you to look at some of this. Here's a lady here in this picture. She has some sort of machine that she's hooked up to, because they had their own version of generators. Their own version of ventilators. But you can see what's happening here. This particular picture here, when I went to that where it says the ladies right here on the far, looking at the screen, it would be on your left, on your far left where it says lessons learned. These were people keeping the records of what was going on. Look at your police force. They were out, and they were all dealing with this. Look at the nurses there. And they, they didn't have the mask. They just had a piece of cloth to put on you. Look at this picture here to the far left. It says health after the 1918 flu. Some people call it the Spanish flu, the swine flu. This is over in this is not a United States paper, but look what it says. Public places are ordered closed. Okay. In that heading, if you can see it, Germans reply handed to Swiss Minister Kaiser, allies would quit. That's another article, but what I want to look at the one to the right of that. It says mayor issues order to prevent spread influenza plague, and that's what it was. It was the flu. It affected the respiratory system. Okay, and the reason why you got to look at this history is because right off the bat, people will start to say things. Oh, this is they're trying to do a world order. They're testing to see how we're going to act and what we're going to do. Brothers and sisters, they already know what you're going to do. They know the world is going to panic. They know the world is going to create conspiracy theories. They already know that. This is nothing new. Okay, this is a part of the history. They study this stuff to see how to handle it. And nobody's ever prepared because you don't know when it's going to happen, because it happens every 100 years. Look at some of these photos here. That little picture says Spanish influenza. So that's a factory. If you see on that picture really closely, it says don't spit. So they knew then that it's in your spit. If you spit, it's there. I mean, now we say spitting, coughing, sneezing, anything. Okay? You can see here where they're carrying out dead bodies. This is the military, okay, in that picture to the right. Looking over to the left. I'm going to bring in some newspaper articles in just a second. But just to show you just what was taking place, this is nothing new. Here they're showing you baseball and how it impacted sports. Okay, you can see the guy who's batting, the referee, the umpire, the batter. Everybody's got on a mask. Okay, so certainly we couldn't have NBA players and football players running down wearing masks, but who knows what they may do when the NFL season starts. Okay. They didn't have the NBA back then, but baseball's been around for a very long time. So when we look at this stuff, just kind of get an idea of what's happening. Let's see what else we can look at here. Look where it says in this photo right here, second wave. Second wave. Let me move up to that. Second wave of the 1918 Spanish flu. Why did they call it the second wave? Because people were anxious to get back into businesses. People were anxious to get back into schools, to churches, just like they are today. There's nothing new under the sun. That's a picture where it says Cincinnati fights the 1918 Spanish flu. People in lines. You got to feed people because people were losing their jobs. This is nothing new. Nothing new at all. Look at that. It's going back to showing the picture there in playing baseball. Look at this. Southern California. Spanish flu ravaged Southern California. Now keep in mind, this was a pandemic. A pandemic is when it's worldwide. That's what makes it pandemic. So look at that. California always gets hit. Okay? So this is nothing new. So when we look at this here, it just goes on and on. Here's a lady on some type of ventilator where they talked about social distancing. These are words that just wasn't created as a result of this pandemic. This is something that they are looking at. I'm bringing up some of the newspaper articles here. It says, influenza is still raging. Look where it says 15 persons right here. I don't know if y'all can see my mouse there, but where it says it touches Marion County, 15 persons in the emergency hospital. I mean, this is nothing new. Look where it says Ohio cases reach a total of 85,000 people. I mean, this is the headlines. We're looking at these things today. Same thing. And what's unique is if people don't understand and see that this has happened before, then all of a sudden we try to analyze and look at the scriptures from a different prophetic perspective. Brothers and sisters, let me say this. The next big thing to happen is the tribulation. Okay? So that's it. That's what we're waiting on. We're waiting. You got to look at what's happening in the European Union. You got to look at the four levels of who's running the world. You got to look at that. You know, there's Babylon, the Medes and the Persians, the Greeks and the Rome. Rome is still in charge today, but you got to look at where he says in Revelation that measure the temple, but don't measure that part outside the temple because the Gentiles are going to tread upon it. You have to watch that. To watch what we're looking at today, you're simply dealing with what Matthew already said was going to happen. You're going to have pestilence and diseases. You're going to have earthquakes. You're going to have wars and rumors of wars and all of this stuff in diverse places. None, but the end is not yet. It tells you when the end is going to be. Let's look at some more of this here. I had some headlines in here earlier. Spanish flu has endangered the prosecution of the war in Europe. Here's where they made a monument, okay? The 1918 influenza epidemic. And they're going to do the same thing. You know, when you look at this, there's people who want to come back. Look at that. You know, when I clicked on that one there earlier, where it says Spanish flu shows why social distancing and it goes on, people were boycotting back then. They wanted to open everything up. They had signs, open up, because when they wasn't catching the flu and they felt like, wait a minute, it's summertime, this thing is gone. It's because flus are associated with winter weather. And they said, open things back up. That's what they're doing now. The same thing is happening now. And then you had a second wave. So this is nothing new. Listen to this one here. Influenza epidemic closes schools, churches, theaters. I'm going to read some of this. Drugstores swamped with flu victims. Here's another. I'm looking at the article on the left-hand side, all the way over. Health Commissioner issues proclamation ordering drastic methods to check disease spread. It just goes on. I mean, so when you got churches closed, schools closed, theaters, in 1918, that's when the movie theater was something new. I mean, that's like having an iPhone. You know, everybody rushes to go get the iPhone. Well, the movie theater back then was how people got the news. It was a production. The before they showed the movie, they went in and they showed what was going on in the war. They showed what was happening worldwide. That's where you went to go get information, was at the movie theater. That's what they did. They showed what was going on in the elections. People went there to watch, to get that information at a theater. But as you can see in that 1918, schools closed, churches closed, theaters closed. I mean, this thing was something else. It hit everybody. Like I said, this is nothing new under the sun. Here's my old state, 1918, flu to COVID-19 in Kentucky. So a lot of people, a lot of the news agencies are comparing this with COVID-19. Now, let me just say this, compared to COVID-19. The COVID-19 has not even surfaced. It hasn't even scratched the burrow where the numbers of the Spanish flu hit. 50 million people in the United States died. I'm sorry, 675,000 people in the United States died. 50 million worldwide died. 500 million people worldwide were affected. So let me give you that number again. 500 million people were affected with the swine flu. Of that, 50 million died. So they said 10% died. In the United States alone, 675,000 people died. Where are we today? About 98,000 people have died of COVID-19. But during the Spanish flu, 675,000. Now, I'm not minimizing the COVID-19. I'm not downplaying it. There's an explanation as to why the numbers are different. Because we have media, we have technology, the ability to get information abroad. And to spread information is a lot more vast. It's a lot more quicker than it was in 1918. 1918, you had to wait till the newspaper printed something. Okay, so that's how they didn't have cell phones. That you couldn't go on YouTube and watch. That you didn't have that back in 1918. So the information did not get out as quickly as it is today. And that's the explanation for that. That it's just common sense. I mean, you know that. Let's look at some of these others here. That's the Red Cross. And there they are. They're showing a wedding that was impacted by the influenza that flew. Here's a sign that says, don't spit. That was the biggest thing. Everybody put signs out. Don't spit, don't spit, don't spit. So that was just big back then. City puts bans on funerals and churches. Listen to this. So that's nothing new. 15 or more die of Spanish flu. Disease spreads to Mexican quarters and claims Sutton told as health officers ordered discontinuance, public gatherings, and closed pool halls. Okay, that's in 1918. They had sports bars and pool halls back then too. All of that got closed. And people marched when they wanted to come back in. You see where it says spit spreads death? Okay, that's what people thought. When you spit, and it's on the spit, you know, forget it. You notice they're not saying nothing about sneeze, but that was a big thing. Spit, don't spit. So just looking at this, it kind of gives you an idea of what was taking place. I'm going to click on one of these so we can get it. Here's an article that says, flu epidemic is not a joke. Many brave dangers with smile like boys over there, but there are around 500 cases reported. I don't know. It's kind of hard to read that one, what they were going at. Here are people, I guess, carrying out dead bodies. Here's an article. It says, fewer influenza cases reported, but death list is growing more rapidly. We're going to see the same thing, too. You know, you're going to see fewer cases, but people are dying. And the same thing is going to happen. Same thing. There's nothing new, brothers and sisters, under the sun. Nothing new at all. You see where they call it the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic? Just like today, is this an epidemic or a pandemic? So, I mean, it goes on. Chicago, they were talking about, you see the barber shop open there, and everybody's wearing masks. So how long are we going to do this? I don't know. I don't know how we're going to be affected and how long it's going to be. Spanish influenza, what is it? And how it should be treated. I mean, this is just information. Same thing, the same articles that we get today is the same thing that came back in 1918, brothers and sisters. Same thing. Nothing new. Nothing new. You can see the Red Cross everywhere. I mean, this is nothing new. Here's an article says Spanish flu is epidemic here. Many cases develop into deadly pneumonia, easier to prevent than cure. How to avoid. And that's the same thing we're dealing with today. It's easier for us to prevent it because there is no cure. There is no cure for this pandemic. Just so you know, there is no cure. Look at this. I mean, here you got people fighting in a war, and there is no social distancing there. So I want to click on one of these in a minute so we can look at it. To the parents of children. I mean, I didn't read that article, but you can read some of these articles and go back in to just see what was going on back then. I mean, when you look at this, deathly 1980 flu in Kansas City, how the 1918 flu halted Hollywood. I mean, are we going to bounce back when the Almighty says it's time to bounce back? So I'm going to jump on one of these articles just so we can kind of see what to expect here. Let me find one if we can jump on, because again, here's one says, edict of mayor may order town close. Okay. Same thing that we're going through today. Should you close the town? Should we open the town? Whose decision is it? All of that. I mean, it's just the same thing. And let me bring this out, because you got that group between 18 and 35 who carries a lot of influence when it comes to social media. So a lot of people jump on social media and they said, this is the start of the one world government. This is the start of, they're trying to put us all under martial law. I don't know what those people said in 1918. But let me just bring some common sense. Brothers and sisters, there's only going to be one world government that is set up, and that's when the Most High returns. That's it. Satan can try to do it. It's not going to happen. There will never be a one world government. Never, ever. Never. You would never see it. The Bible doesn't talk about a one world government. The only time you're going to see a one world government is when the Messiah returns, sits on the seat of David in Jerusalem, and there's going to be one law and one Lord. And it says, and the lawgiver shall come out of Zion. That's Jerusalem. That's God's holy mountain. That's it. That's the only time you're going to have a one world government. So when people say, oh, it's going down, it's going down. This is what they're trying to do. Arm yourself. Get your guns out. Ain't nothing wrong with getting a gun. Nothing at all wrong with getting a gun. At all. I have a few guns. Okay, but I don't live by them. But I have a few guns. But I'm not going out to arm myself. The Almighty didn't tell you that. He says, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High. You got to keep yourself in. God will put up a hedge around you. He will put up a hedge around you. He will protect you. I'm not saying whether there's something right or wrong with buying a gun. That's a personal decision. There's no sin in owning a gun. You want to own a gun, go get a gun. You want to get an AR-15, get an AR-15. Lock it up, please, so your children don't get a hold of it. There's nothing wrong. There's no sin in having a gun. That's not my subject tonight, but I'm just saying, if when those individuals came after Jesus, Peter took his sword out and cut the man's ear off. Perhaps if he had guns back then, he might have shot the man in the ear, shot him in the head. Who knows? All I'm saying is that this is nothing new. There's no need to panic. Okay? This is not new. It's going down, I mean, 1918, 100 years ago, was somebody counting the plagues? No. Brothers and sisters, you know when those plagues are going to start according to the scriptures. And that's what we have to look at. That's what we have to look at when we're dealing with this stuff. Okay? Nothing to just go berserk on because it's never happened before. Look at this here. It's showing courts are closed. Here's a police officer out there probably in some place. He's directing traffic. He's got his mask on. I mean, it just goes on and on when you look at these photos to just see that this is not the first time we're dealing with this. Here's an article here. Where does it say? Yanks in crucial battle. Theaters, churches, schools of Utah close on account of flu. It's nothing new. Nothing new. That was back in 1918. And of course, the media has all this information, so they're looking at it because it's the same media as it was then, it is now, you know. So they're looking at their archives. That's where a lot of these pictures come from. Nothing new. Look at this. They're talking about the curve. This is, you know, what about the curve? In 1918, they was waiting for the curve to come. And the curve is simply when the flu is going up in numbers and you keep each day you have more and more cases. You want that curve to come. What is the curve? When you have less cases, okay? And everybody, they feel when that curve starts to go down, people get antsy. Let us out of our houses now. Let us back into schools, the theaters, the churches, the pool halls, the bars, the saloon. Let us back. We want to go back. We want to get back on the ships, cruise ships. We want to get back on the transit. All of that. This is nothing new. Nothing new. Okay, nothing new. Let's bring out some more. Let's bring out some more here. This is good here. Here's somebody from Southern California who's got a suit on, and the policeman looks like he scolded him for not having on his mask. Sound familiar? I mean, it's nothing new. There's a group of nurses there. You know how they had the blimp flying over South Florida on Friday, and just appreciating the nurses because they're the ones that's really taking care of everybody, exposing themselves. Right? Look at that. They had microscopes back then. Nothing new. Nothing new at all. We're going to read one of these articles. We'll be right back. We're going to come back and read some of these articles and look at Wikipedia and look at what the Spanish flu was. You all stand by and we'll be right back. All right, we're back here. Let's pull up some articles here to look at this, and then I'm gonna go into the chat room. Here's an article I got here, and it says 100 years ago, Philadelphia closes. Philadelphia chose a parade over social distancing during the 1918 Spanish flu and paid a let's look at that article. Let's see what it says here. Let's go in here and look at it. Okay. It says 100 years ago, Philadelphia chose a parade over social distancing during the 1918 Spanish flu and paid a heavy price. What am I saying? Somebody's going to pay a heavy price. Trust me. History has a way of, if you follow history, if you learn from history, it's very valuable. When I was growing up in school, I saw no value in history because nobody took the time to explain to me that if you look at history, that you can learn what to do simply by history. And nobody really told me that. They really did not tell me that at all. I remember taking a course at the University of Kentucky. That's where I first went to school. And there was something called military history. And that class I had to take because I was in something called ROTC. It was a high school version of the military academy. And so when they gave me a little scholarship, and I had to go to a military history class. And what I learned was that there was an old general back in the cavalry days, and people learned they still use war tactics. General Patton, who was very successful, used war strategies based upon that general. This general was a war strategist in the way that he would use flanks and lure you in, and people still use those histories today. They still use that. So that's when I realized, that's why they use history. They use history because history has a way that you can learn from history. You can actually learn what to do. Okay, and I'll give you a simple example. If you touch a hot stove and you burn your hand, certainly you're going to tell your child, don't you touch that stove, you're going to get burnt. Sometimes experience is the best teacher because people, even though you show them history, they still don't want to get it until they go through it. Hurricanes in South Florida, we know what to do. We're pros. When it comes to, I know what to do with a hurricane. I can almost tell you whether or not a hurricane is coming or not, just based upon certain things. We don't listen to the media. We look at the track record. We look at the history of tracking, but I don't listen to the media because the media, they get most of their sponsorships from the lumber companies like Home Depot and Lowe's and Winn-Dixie and Publix and all like that. So when they say, okay, the storm is coming, they'll be inside the Home Depot. You want to make sure you get your flashlights and your batteries, and you want to make sure you get this. Do you need to get that stuff? Absolutely. But what they'll do is they're airing that segment right out of the lumber store and show you right now they still got batteries, so get down here. So people rush. Every year they go rush. They rush and they empty the shelves. They do all of that. And you can tell simply by the tracking, the hurricane ain't coming nowhere near Florida. Nowhere near Florida. It's coming. And they do this 10, 15 days out because these companies rack. They rack their money. Okay, that's what they do. It's a scam. It really is. When I tell you it's a real live scam, it's a real live scam. But when you do is you wait till a few days and you start looking at that thing, and you always have your shutters put away. You already have or storm impact windows, and you look out there and you can see the tracking, and you say, wait, this one here don't look good. And you start to get your act together, get everything together. And sometimes like hurricane season in South Florida starts June the 1st. That's the hurricane season. So I'm stocking up on water today. I don't wait till June the 1st. although there's no storm out there, I don't wait till a storm is out there. I get water now. I get dry goods now, and your canned goods now, and you get your generator now. You can't wait until the storm comes and try to prepare for the storm. That's like the ant and the grasshopper. You know, the ants are working and the grasshopper is lollygagging. And then when the winter time comes, you don't have nothing to eat. So the same thing happens with this COVID-19. I'm looking at it, and I go back and I say, some people say, well, we've never experienced this before. And this is, what do they say? There's no precedent set before this. And we've never gone through anything like this. Yes, we have. It's in the history books. Just read. It's there. You want to know what to do? Look at where they made their mistakes at then. It's just really, brothers and sisters, that simple. So let's look at this real quick. And before we look at it, y'all know I got to put this commercial in. That's our phone app. You can get it from the Android store, or you can also get it from the iPhone Play Store. That's a free app. Get it, because a lot of times when I'm coming online, I will send you a push notification, especially if you're not getting your notifications from YouTube. And you can also, we have lessons there that's on demand. Kind of lets you know what we're doing, and you get there's a daily scripture that we put in there that you will get every week. So check that out. You can also give donations on there. There's a donation part, and you can go in there, sign up. If you're not giving to a ministry, let Bethel be your place, because we do a lot of things the first Sabbath of every month. We feed the homeless and clothe them. We give them breakfast and lunch. Because we in COVID-19, we just been giving them a continental breakfast and clothing. No matter what pandemic you're in, there are still people hurting. And of course, we use our social media to get the gospel out. Even this segment is powered by Bethel BHG TV. So thank you. If you'd like to give, we also have a, what is it? We have a, here's some of our information. Let me find it here, where you can go at and get some of our information. There it is right there. That's our Cash App. Our Cash App is Bethel House of God just Bethel House of God, the $ Bethel House of God. And I want to thank all of you that do give, that make this possible, this platform possible. Thank you very much. When you do give, make sure you leave your email address, because you will get a report from us at the beginning of each year what you did the following year. Some people use that to get a tax write-off, and that's perfectly okay. I have my Patreon account up there, which is patreon.com. Pastor Johnson. It's all one word. That's how you can find me. But if you're doing offerings and you're doing you want to do something consistent where you want to give from your on a larger level, I encourage you to go through Bethel House of God, because we track it. Not to say I don't track it when you go through Patreon, but that is more for those that would like to do like a $5 or $10 a month type of thing, where it comes automatically out of your debit card. And I use those funds to do certain things like I'm doing now. Headphones, microphones, lighting. We have a digital soundboard. We have a lot of different stuff that we use to to do this. One of the latest gadgets, we got something called a stream deck. This is how I go from commercial to commercial and different things and setting up a show. This is because you all make things possible. So if you want to continue to do that and let us get software and just to keep up with the ever-growing trend of staying on top of this market, thank you for what you do in Patreon. All right, so let's get back to this. So let's read something here. It says, this is not new. And the reason why I'm going into this, because I want to show you that there's nothing new. And so you can have a perspective, because there are a lot of people panicking right now, by the way. I mean, there really are. I have dealt with so many people who they're just saying, Pastor, I'm scared, and rightfully so, because if you think that this is the first time this has ever happened to you, there's no end. When is it ever going to go away? What's happening next? And that's perfectly all right. So let's read this here. It says, 100 years ago, Philadelphia closed a parade over social distancing during the 1918 Spanish flu. They chose a parade. They didn't close it. They chose a parade. So they wanted to have that parade and paid heavily. Let's read this. Among the worst moments of the 1918 influenza pandemic were Philadelphia's overwhelmed morgue stacking unembalmed bodies without ice on multiple floors until storage was found, or the city resorted to steam shovels for digging mass graves. The 1918 Spanish influenza, a vicious disease, some historians call it, emerged as World War I was ending. It killed an estimated 50 million or more people worldwide, 675,000 in the USA alone. Now I'm going to blow this up a little bit so you don't have to strain your eyes looking at it. So let me see if I can get in here and blow that up a little bit. Just hold on here. We're going to see if we can make that a little bit bigger. Yes, we're getting there. Not too big. Okay. There we go. So let's read some of this. Because, again, this is nothing new. Okay? So let's go back. Let's read this. The 1918 Spanish influenza, a vicious disease. Some historians call it Some historians called it emerged as World War I was ending. It killed an estimate of 50 million or more people worldwide, 675,000 in the USA alone. It attacked the lungs, making breathing difficult, but influenza alone did not kill all those people. Most of the victims died of bacteria pneumonia, a secondary infection that closely followed the flu. Some patients exhibited a condition called cyanosis. Now, I got somebody in the medical field, Sister KT. She's here in the chat room. If she can maybe give us what that word means, cyanosis. Put it there in the chat room, Sister K. She is a practitioner there, and she can tell us what that means. It's some medical term, but look at that, called cyanosis. Their lungs filled with fluid and bodies starved of oxygen. They would change color from red to blue to nearly black before dying. The virus of a century ago infected approximately 500 million people, or 1/3 of the world's population, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. What people did then is similar to what we're doing today, including self-isolation, guarding against coughing and sneezing, and limiting public gatherings. 1 in 3 were infected with the 1918 flu virus. Now, let me just say this. This thing is going to come back. There's going to be a second wave. It's going to hit harder than it did the first time. Why you say that, Pastor Johnson? Because just like when it hit the first time, it didn't hit that many people. It did not hit that many people. It affected a lot of people. It didn't kill a lot of people. So a lot of people got antsy. They wanted to get back into the church. They wanted to get back into schools. They wanted to get back into the stores. They didn't have malls like they got today. But people want to get back to the malls. They want to get back to things are on a larger scale today. They want to get back to it. And when they did, the virus was not gone. Okay? It hit like a storm, and that's what it's going to do again. So let's look at some of this. Success in St. Louis, failure in Philadelphia. Even though they didn't have the highest or lowest death rates in the country, 2 major cities emerged as examples of government response and what to do and what not to do. St. Louis, which recognized the viral danger and took immediate steps to contain it, and Philadelphia, which did not. So let's look at some of those reports. They make a good foil for one another. Says Alexander Navarro, Assistant Director for the Center for History of Medicine at the University of Michigan. The East Coast and Philadelphia were hit at a much earlier stage of the pandemic, says David McKenzie, an infectious disease physician at the Research Medical Center in Kansas City, Missouri. St. Louis had the advantage of being able to watch and learn from others' mistakes. This is important. I'm not going to read all of this. I'm just bringing out a couple key points, like learning from each other's mistakes. What can we learn about this disease? Don't rush, people. Don't rush. I'm not saying don't go to the grocery store. I'm not saying that don't get back into the swing of things. Don't get so relaxed. The other day, just in Florida, they opened everything up on May 18th. So the restaurants are open, but 50% capacity. So if the restaurant is usually, if their capacity is 400, they can serve 200. Okay, and you cannot have tables more than a party of 8 or something like that. So what am I saying? People were out. There wasn't a body. There's no way. There's no enforcement agency that's going to walk around and see what people are doing and if they are complying. And a restaurant who has not been open, when they get to 200 people, they're not going to simply say, well, man, we got all this line out here. They're going to let another 10 people in. And before you know it, people are waiting. And people are waiting in line. They're not waiting. They're no longer waiting 6 feet apart. Somebody lets their mask down. All kinds of stuff. And then there you go. It happens. On Mother's Day weekend, there was a church that had in their city, they were told that churches cannot meet. The pastor decided that, listen, it's Mother's Day weekend, enough is enough. I mean, they got emotional because it was Mother's Day weekend, you know. We all love mothers. And they decided, we're going to do something. And he had a congregation of about 250. 200 people of the 250 showed up for this Mother's Day thing where they would just come and get your flowers. And it got out of control because all of a sudden they're inside and people got no mask on. Well, one person infected the entire church. They went back, and when that person came down heavy with it, the symptoms, and they said, where did you go at? Well, I was at a church meeting. Okay, where did you go at before that? Well, I traveled. Okay, wow, you traveled. Well, you're the carrier, all right. Well, what church was it? Told them what church it was. They made contact with the pastor. The pastor couldn't deny having the service because they did. And then they said, well, we need to test everybody that was there at that Mother's Day celebration. And they did. And at the latest count was 180 people tested positive for coronavirus. So it's stuff like that I just want to bring out to show you that we can be wise. Okay? Let's go on a little bit. As the coronavirus escalates around the globe, researchers are re-examining the 1918 pandemic, how it spread and how people responded. States and cities devised their own strategies because, listen to this, the federal government really didn't do a lot. Well, that's no different from what Trump is doing today. And you got CNN because it's an election year. Why won't the president do something? No president in their right mind is going to make a state make that decision. They're not going to do it. And it's a smart move. I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not pro-Republican or Democrat. It's a smart move. You leave that up to the governors. Why is that? Because if you make the decision, and if it's a bad decision, you own it. You don't want to own that. You're just there for support. Let's continue to read that. It says states and cities devised their own strategies because the federal government really didn't do a lot, McKinsey says. It issued some guidelines, but had its hands full with World War I and preventing disease among the troops. That's true, because the military was catching it. In fact, when you read other resources on the Spanish flu pandemic, it spread because of the military. There were some soldiers that was home. They were recruiting. They opened up, and instead of making sure or asking certain questions, the military wanted people in the war, and they took them. And they put them out into training. They took them from training, put them on a ship, put them in Navy, and spread them out. And those guys spread that flu. What did the military learn from that? Try to go into the military right now. Seriously, go into the military right now. And one of the things, and I've talked to people, and I was just talking to someone, I don't say who I was talking to, but I was just talking to someone who has a relative very connected to the military. And if you had COVID-19, they won't draft you. They won't let you come into the military at all, period. Try to go into the military because they've learned. They've already learned. Listen, we don't need that problem. We don't need people catching COVID-19 because once you get COVID-19, even if you get healed from it, depending on the scar tissue, depending on the damage that it does to lungs, it's life. It's a life impact. Okay? So, and of course, it always depends on the severity of it. So the military today has learned. Are we going to learn? Let's look a little bit more at that. How Philadelphia and St. Louis deaths compared. Peak rate, the day with the highest number of cases per 100,000 for 1918. I'm not going to get into all of these numbers, but you kind of get where I'm going at here. Let's get down to another part here when I read this article. Let me see here. Here's one. The United States entered the war April the 6th, 1917. By May 1918, 1 million U.S. soldiers were fighting in Europe, according to the Smithsonian, and ships of troops were crossing the Atlantic both ways, often carrying the virus with them. The war didn't end until November the 11th, 1918. But look at this. They're showing you a picture of these soldiers. So once they joined into the military, they owned them. Okay? So look at what it says. Soldiers are quarantined while recovering from the Spanish flu at Camp Funston, Kansas in 1918. I read a little bit more on that. Let me tell you what happened. When it started on the military base, it went away. They had it taken care of. But there was a recruiter that was heavily recruited in Kansas. They have a lot of swine farms. And this is where they really tracked, the government really tracked the Spanish flu to Kansas from swine. So there was those that were working on the hog farms, the slaughterhouses, dealing with swine. And they identified it as coming from the pigs. The pigs had this virus, and those working with the pigs, not washing their hands, handling themselves, wiping their nose, whatever your case may be, and they contracted the virus from the pigs. It's no doubt, I do not doubt from one iota that it did not come from bats in Wuhan, China, from those meat markets where they eat those exotic animals. Not at all would it pass me that is a true factual statement. But those individuals that were coming from those, what they call slaughterhouses. They tracked 6 guys that came into the military, went through the base, went through the recruitment. In World War I, they was rushing you. They signed you up. Boot camp wasn't like it is today, brother and sister. You were there. You were getting tested. You were getting your uniform fitted, and off to war you went. It was just that quick. That's how bad the military needed people in World War I. And then, as we read, they were getting on ships, going across the Atlantic. They were affecting not only other soldiers, but every country that they went into when they were getting what they call their R&R. Okay, they spread it. And the military in the United States doesn't deny that they're the ones that probably spread the swine flu, which took on the infamous name Spanish flu. Why Spanish flu? Because it was in Spain where most of the people died. So it took on the name Spanish flu. And in Spain is where a lot of people started to travel from, and it had to take ownership. But when you read the books, it'll tell you it came right from Kansas. It came from those 6 guys who were working at that slaughterhouse. Okay? Let's jump back over in here real quick. So soldiers are quarantined while recovering from the Spanish flu at Camp Funston. Let me add this in there to something else that I read too, was that they can only have a certain amount of people in barracks. But what they were doing, they wanted this one particular general wanted so many people. They was taking them. There was no, they broke the rules, everything. People came in there with a cough, and they had more people that was registering for World War I that they can even take them, and they just overloaded them. So that had a lot to do with it. Let's see what it says here. Away from the front, the military plays a significant part in the two-city comparison. St. Louis is about 17 miles north of Jefferson Barracks. At that time, a large Army mobilization point in Philadelphia was home to the U.S. Navy's busy Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, which housed about 45,000 sailors. St. Louis had far fewer fatalities than Philadelphia. Why? Because the military was the ones that were affected, and they were the ones that were carriers. What did the cities do differently? The first flu deaths, and look at what it says, the first flu deaths, because there was a second wave. The first flu deaths were reported in Boston on September the 8th, 1918, the day before 300 sailors from the city arrived in Philadelphia. On September the 11th, 19 soldiers at Philadelphia's naval yard were sick. The numbers kept climbing, spilling over from sailors to workers to citizens. Okay? That's how this thing started to go here. Look at here. Spanish flu influenza has endangered the prosecution of the war in Europe. Look what it's got in red. Spitting spread, Spanish influenza, don't spit. That was a sign at the Philadelphia Naval Aircraft Factory warns workers to not spit. It's whatever somebody thought, you know. Philadelphia officials knew about the flu in Boston and at the Navy Yard. The city's Bureau of Health issued flu warnings and upgraded it to a reportable disease. Health officials who either believed it was true or wanted to avoid hurting public morale said that there was little chance it would spread among the public. Listen to this. Those who wanted to avoid hurting public morale, they downplayed. Some people downplayed it and some people didn't. Just like today. You remember when the coronavirus came, right on YouTube, there was a lot of people, oh, we got melanin in our skin. It don't bother us. Because we're only X amount of percent of the world population and the United States population. It didn't touch our communities when it first came in. But when it came in and hit, brothers and sisters, we account for 60+% of the deaths of coronavirus. Okay? So here we are, about 12-15% of the population in the United States, reportedly, and out of all the deaths in the United States, if 100 people die, at least 60 of the 100 people is people of color who have melanin in us, but yet we're only a small percentage of the population. Because people didn't believe. Oh, I don't believe that. I believe they're trying to put us under martial law. Oh, I think they're trying to do this. Oh, this is a push. They trying to. Come on, we need to stop this. We need to stop this. Really, let's continue to read. This doubt was embraced by many Philadelphians who saw the war as the real priority and even characterized the hype of the flu as a German ploy. Doesn't that sound familiar? Isn't that sound what people do? You know who this is? This is Russia. You know, listen, there's nothing new under the sun, people. This doubt was embraced by many Philadelphians who saw the war as the real priority and even characterized the hype of the flu as a German ploy. Historian Jefferson Anderson, who published his master thesis on the pandemic at Rutgers, told USA Today. So here's somebody that wrote it and said, look at it. Everybody back then, this is who they thought it was. Listen to this here. So here you got 600 sailors and Marines reported sick to the Navy hospital in September the 15th, 1918. September the 17th, this was in Philadelphia. 5 doctors, 14 nurses in a Philadelphia hospital became ill with the flu. Doesn't some of this sound like it's repeating itself? Look at September the 18th in Philadelphia. City Health Department begins campaign against spitting and coughing in public. 4 days later, 2 sailors die of the flu. The next day, 15 sailors, 1 civilian die of the flu. The next day, the 21st, 24 flu deaths. Influenza reclassified as a reportable disease. But over in St. Louis, That's when it hit over there. St. Louis citizens advised to avoid crowds, get rest, and avoid alcohol. So they hear what's going on in Philadelphia, so they start to prepare. Philadelphia Public Ledger publishes U.S. Surgeon General warns that the influenza is a crowd disease and that crowds should be avoided. 2 days later, the director of the city's Council of National Defense writes letter to Liberty Lawn Parade organizers outlining route and insisting they sell war bonds. So in other words, let's get this parade going. But yet over in St. Louis, as the flu rises in military, the Army counsels October draft. But over in Philadelphia, 200 people are admitted to city hospitals. This is not military. This is civilians. They're admitted into the hospital. Then on the 28th, they went on ahead and had that Liberty Bond Parade with an estimated crowd of 200,000 people. So you don't think those people, of course, that's the difference. One city took precaution and the other didn't. People in Florida, we want to go to the beach. Open the beaches. Let people get back to having fun. I'm telling you, don't go. Don't go. You have a history as to what has taken place before. Don't do it. Stand by. I'll be right back. All right. So let's continue this. Let's get a little bit more into this here. Wow. It's because they were selling war bonds, so they had a parade to do that. I just wanted to bring that out. Here it is. Parade spreads virus like wildfire. Let me tell you something. It was a blessing that in South Florida for Memorial Day weekend, we got rain. And some people said, oh man, let me tell you, God can bless you and protect you and you don't even know that you're being protected. Really, seriously. And it's been raining, Dave Broward and West Palm Beach. Could you imagine if they left this thing open and people on the beaches and they want to do this? This rain really stopped a lot of stuff this weekend in South Florida. I don't know what's going across the country, other places, but let me tell you something. It's nothing to play with. Locally at our congregation, I was telling those that were there to help. We have essential people there. Being musicians and singers and those that, because we go live and give the people that are at home a service. And one thing I can say about the people at Bethel, I am so proud of them. People are still doing their tithes, their offerings, and their contributions. And let me tell you, it's phenomenal. But yet we owe them a service. We owe them a lesson. It's incumbent upon us to get the message out to them. The president said the other day that I want churches open. If the governors don't do it, I'm going to open them up. Well, I told our congregants, listen here, time out. President don't tell us when to come back. We're going to use some wisdom here. And here's what we're going to do. Pentecost is coming up next weekend. We're doing the same thing what we're doing, same thing. And this year, we're going to have Pentecost feast with our families. That's what we're doing. And for the month of June, we're waiting. And somebody said, well, what are you waiting for? I want to watch the numbers after this weekend and next weekend before we open up our doors in June and say people can start coming back. What am I waiting on? I'm looking at to see what happens to everybody else. I want to see everybody with all this social contact. All the numbers are going to start to climb like they are in certain cities that have opened up. Are they starting to climb now? That's what I'm looking at before I put our people in jeopardy. And you have to do that. Let's look at some more over here. We're going to get out of this article and get into another one. Let's go over here to another one. I want to go back up and look at another article, just looking at some of this. So, let's see. I don't want to look at that one. Here's one I want to look at. Photos, the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. This is pretty interesting to look at here. So let's look at this so we can see it. Nurses, everybody getting ready, okay? They doing their thing. They're getting ready for everything, okay? Let's look at some more here. Look at this here. This is from 1918, by the way. 1918. You see where they're making hospitals just anywhere. People out on the balcony. Not enough people. Put them outside. Let's make stuff. Okay? There's the soldiers there. We looked at these pictures here a little bit closer than it was the ones that we looked at earlier. But they're a little bit closer up. Okay? So look at this. The hotels, this is the military getting together or somebody getting together here. It's just something to look at. Here you have people here. Doesn't say what country it is. I don't think it does. It doesn't. But here's people waiting, Their beds are empty that they're carrying, but obviously those are wagons or some sort of trucks back then carrying the dead out. Okay? Here's something interesting here. I noticed I call them Hebrews there. People of color, black people, our people, they don't have no mask on, probably because nobody made them put it on. I hope they didn't think that we got melanin. We don't catch this, because they didn't keep stats. I like to see what the stats were back then. Here it says interior of Red Cross house at U.S. General Hospital during the influenza pandemic. So you can see where they got the beds and stuff like this. Here's that parade that they told people not to have, but they had it anyway. Just kind of sharing some information here, just like that they did. Soldiers at hospital at Camp Upton, Long Island, during the influenza epidemic in the fall of 1918. Epidemic influenza. They call it the Spanish. They put Spanish there. But let me tell you, if you do a little bit more research, it did not come from Spain. It got the name because that's where most of the people died from. It says the disease is highly communicable. It may develop into severe pneumonia. Look at that, how to make a mask. So, listen, people, nothing is new under the sun. Obviously, they're covering a body up. They got the gloves on, the mask on, the long sleeves on. This is that came from the Library of Congress. Photos of, let me see here. There's the people on the beaches. So when you look at this, people been on beaches. People still, we look at this as if, oh, this is the first time. Let's continue to look at some of this. Okay, this is getting in something else now. We'll pull up some more here in just a minute. So, just to show you, and this is why I wanted to bring some perspective into this. Some people are already posting things like, this is the post-pandemic. Post means after the post-COVID-19. There is no post-COVID-19 because COVID-19 is not over. It's not over. I'm going to look here in the chat room just for a second here because I know some of you are making some comments. Area says, how you doing, Area? Glad that you're here with us. Area says, we just have to trust God and believe he's going to take us. And all of this in the world of God, we must read and believe. Absolutely. And the Most High has given us wisdom. He's given us wisdom that we can kind of get all of this. That's what he's doing. D. Carlos says, Shalom, Pastor. You help me understand H.R. 7. Could you help me understand House Representative Bill 748? More specifically, the date it was introduced, reverse the timeline of the virus. It was spotted by someone, and I wasn't for sure if it was a typo. I'm not familiar with HR means it's a House of Representative bill. 748. I'm not familiar. I will look into it, though. I certainly will. Let's see what else we have here. I'm just looking at some of the comments real quick because, when you all take your time to come over here, I at least want to look at that. Okay, so let's get back over here and see what else we have. I just wanted, because I told you all during Bible study last week, I was going to take some time to look at this and spend an evening on this. I don't have to go to work, so I got it. I mean, I'm good. Why are there almost no memorials to the flu of 1918? I don't know why there's no memorials. Here's one I want to read. Check this out here. Let's read this one. It says, the 1918 Spanish flu's second wave was even more devastating. Americans braced for another coronavirus outbreak in the fall. So let's read this. This is good for us tonight. It really is. Immunizations against smallpox, measles, or hepatitis B should last a lifetime, but that has not been the case for previous coronaviruses. Why did they say previous coronaviruses? Because the coronavirus, people, is a type of influenza SARS. It's the same makeup, okay? Let me tell you this. The coronavirus is nothing new under the sun, okay? It's taken on a different nature, okay? That's what it is. It attacks the respiratory system. Just like all flus and colds, it attacks the respiratory system, okay? And this coronavirus is nothing new. Most of it comes from animals, okay? And our interaction with animals and not washing and being cautious in what we do. That this is nothing new under the sun, okay? Trust me, read up on the virus, read some reliable scientific data. There's what they call white papers out there. Look at the genetic makeup. This is nothing new. So that's why when we read that, what do you mean by previous coronaviruses? In fact, if you go get a can of Lysol, just go get a can of Lysol. And, Lysol's been around for, I don't know, 15 years or more? But look on the can of Lysol. Look at what it kills. And it will say coronavirus. It does. It says coronavirus. So the coronavirus has been around for a long time. It's been around for a long time. In fact, let me tell you what happened. Somebody that I'm work close with, they said, you know what, Mr. Johnson, this is nothing but a hype. You want to kill the coronaviruses out there? Just spray Lysol. I said, so I knew that this was on the back of the can of Lysol. So I'm listening to it. I said, well, why do you say that? Because that's what it is. There it is right there. They got everybody fooled. See right here, coronavirus. And we had a can of Lysol there. And I said, that's been on that can for, 10, 15 years? Oh, that's what I'm trying to say. This ain't nothing. This ain't nothing. I said, no, little girl. No, little girl. That's not true. And I said that because I'm older and I was trying to make a point. This is a different strand. That's what viruses do. They're like plants. They evolve. Each time it evolves into something else. As it is able to live, it builds what it calls a strand to protect itself. Just like a bee protects itself in its hive with its stinger, viruses are living micro, what do you call it, whatever. But they live and they are live and they protect themselves. So they take on a different makeup so that you don't destroy it. It's harder. It's just like a lizard that changes colors, okay? It evolves because it's trying to protect itself. So I said, that's what it is. Let's read that again. That's where I got that from. It says, immunizations against smallpox, measles, and hepatitis should last a lifetime, but that has not been the case for previous coronaviruses. All of that because we read that, and I wanted to bring that out. We were reading this article that talked about the second wave. Okay. Let's read that. I'm going to blow that up a little bit, and I got all these ads up over here. Maybe I can take some of this stuff away so we can kind of get to the nitty-gritty of all of this. Maybe I can close some of it out. I don't know. I'm going to try. See what happens here. Let's try this. Okay. Let's come over here and see if we can blow this up just a little bit here for you all. There we go. Okay, great. So let's read some of this. America is staring down a widespread COVID-19 testing shortage with no vaccine in sight. So what happens when coronavirus makes its unceremonious return? Robert Redfield, director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, told the Financial Times that he can't guarantee more stay-at-home requirements in the winter or the fall. We are committed to using the time that we have now to get this nation as over-prepared as possible. We've seen evidence that the concerns it will go south in the southern hemisphere like flu are coming true, and you're seeing what's happening in Brazil. Redfield told the UK paper. And then when the southern hemisphere is over, I suspect it will reground itself in the north. So what's happening in Brazil? If you've been watching the news, Brazil has a case. It hit. They got so many deaths. They're just, what we read happened in 1918, where they just got so many bodies, they're just piling them up. There's so many people dying that the funeral homes don't have enough place. That's what's happening in Brazil right now. Right now, that's happening. Okay? This simple respiratory viral pathogen has really brought my nation to its knees. It's talking about in Brazil. And the reality is, it's no one particular person's fault, he added. A Columbia University study released this week said that up to 36,000 lives could have been saved had the U.S. economy shut down even 1 week earlier. I'm not going to read all of this, but, I just wanted to bring out the heading to show you that they know that a second wave is coming. But yet people want to get out there. They really want to get out there. Okay? It's too early for herd immunity to be effective. Without a vaccine, herd immunity is another option. That theory was briefly considered in the UK as an alternative to closing businesses and practicing social distancing, but was deemed too risky. Ultimately, enough people would need to be immune to shield the most vulnerable. There's no chance that immunity is going to be high enough to reach herd immunity. Poland said, with influenza, you need herd immunity of 60% to 70%. With measles, you need about 95%. With COVID-19, it's somewhere in the middle. In other words, they need a lot of people to be vaccinated. In the absence of a vaccine, Poland said several conditions are necessary for herd immunity to work. A very high level of population immunity. For that immunity to be durable and for the virus to not mutate. Mutate means it's taken on a different form. If the more people, if you have what they call a herd immunity, in other words, a greater percentage of your population has been deemed immune from the virus, that's what they have to do, and that's what they're going to have to do to get on top of this. That's the practice then. It's the practice still today. None of those seem to be operational at present. Why? Because there's no vaccine. There's no cure. That's why you need to kind of know what's happening here. For example, a New England Journal of Medicine study published this month found that 29 or 14% of 210 pregnant women arriving at New York Presbyterian Island Hospital and Columbia University Irving Medical Center tested positive for COVID-19, yet displayed no symptoms. So what does that mean? All of these pregnant women that came in, they said, let's test every pregnant woman. And they did that. However, when they came in, they showed no symptoms, which means they are asymptomatic. They are carrying the virus, but they have no symptoms. What do you think is happening now when everybody goes to the mall? You're coming up, you're going, not if. You will come across somebody who has no symptoms. You catch it, you go home, you go to work, you travel, you get it. Because you have underlying conditions, boom, bam, you're dead. And why are there a lot of black people dying? Because we have a lot of underlying conditions. Why do we have a lot of underlying conditions? Because the rate, if you take 100 black people, and do a study, probably 35 have medical insurance. So what about the other 65 who don't have medical insurance? Okay, what about them? Well, more than likely, if they need a ventilator because they don't have medical insurance and somebody else comes in that has medical insurance, they're going to give that medical ventilator to the person that's on Blue Cross and Blue Shield. They're going to give it to the person that's on AvMed. They're going to give it to the person that has insurance. And if you have an underlying condition, which is high blood pressure, you're diabetic, you have you're taking dialysis, they're not going to spend much time on you. That's why 60 to 65% of the people that are dying are people of color. It's just that simple. That's what's happening. That's what's going on, people. It's just that simple. That's what's really happening with this virus. Let's read a little bit more. I like to have my music in the background when I'm doing this. We're playing Brother Lorvin's, who's out of St. Tampa over there. That's who's playing here. So let's go over to a little bit more. Just understand what we're telling you here before you jump into it. Let me say this. Let me see. Oliver Lyons. Oliver says, more exposure. Yes. He says the next 2 weeks will be revealing. Absolutely, Oliver. Absolutely. You're 110% right. So why rush? Combination, he says, combination of 2 or more stains. I didn't quite get that part. Deborah. How you doing, Deborah? Thank you for coming in. She says, New Jersey is here. I thank you. Praises to the Most High. Good discussion. Yes. Thank you, Deborah. So listen, look at these numbers, people. This second wave is coming. I'm not a prophet. I am a Bible study teacher. But because I have nearly 3,000 followers and I'm a pastor, I just can't just say, well, don't give nobody no other information. I am a reader. Okay? I'm a consultant. I've worked in public government for over 30 years. I have a consulting group. That's what I do. Out of coming with that much experience, I provided consultation to people today that's in public government. And when I tell people, listen, look at history. History will give you a lot of information. And you don't have to be a prophet. So I'm not going to jump on here and say, I had a dream and the Lord showed me. When you go to YouTube and look at things, everybody has a dream that the Lord gave them. And you know, if you look at their dreams, all the dreams contradict each other. So somebody's got to be lying. Somebody's got to be lying. Somebody said the Lord showed me that this is number 5 of 7 plagues. Somebody said this is the first of 7 plagues. I mean, which one is this? Is it 5 or 7? Did the Lord tell you or did the Lord tell you? You follow me what I'm saying? When you just have to read Matthew the 24th chapter. When they wanted to know when shall the end be, you're going to have earthquakes, you're going to have wars, rumors of wars, and pestilence in diverse places. Every 100 years there is a pandemic. 1700s, 1800s, and the 2020. The other one was in 1918. This one was in 2019. That's why they call it COVID-19. COVID virus 19, because it happened in 2019. The other one was in 1918. The other one was in 1820. I think the bubonic plague. So, I mean, it's every 100 years. Every 100 years. So that's why I said, you know what? Let's stop the madness. The next big thing. Oh, I have to add this in there. Y'all know I'm going to. I don't like to, but I'm going to. It was just June and July last year that I had people debating with me that the 400 years, it was going to be in August 2019 and we getting out and we're leaving. You ain't going nowhere. When you get ready to go, it's when the Most High returns. That's why we did that lesson last week. He says, I will gather you from the nations where you have been scattered. This ain't time. This ain't time for that. It's not time for that at all. So you got to bring this out. So now 2019 is over. We done came into the new year of 2020. And people say, well, they're going to give us reparations and the government. And I was one. I saw it as a dual prophecy until I got deep down into that word. And then I had to retract because the word of God is true and every man's a liar. And then I had to retract what I said, that it already happened. It's not dual prophecy. It already happened. And so, well, somebody says, well, they're going to give us reparations. Brothers and sisters, when they gave that stimulus, listen, Bernie Sanders was asked, how do you feel about reparations? Bernie Sanders, he was asked by a black town hall meeting before the COVID-19, and he says, well, you know, America cannot give, even though it's a small percentage of America, we don't, where would we get the money to give people? Where will we give money? We can never make up for what we did. Then you had the COVID-19. And everybody that's over a certain age got what, $1,500, $1,200, whatever the case is? Where did that money come from? $1 trillion? And they're going to put out another batch of checks, I understand. There weren't your reparations. And you know who got the least amount of that stimulus package? We did. You know why? Because all you got to do is look at the percentage of black people that file taxes. If you did not file taxes, you did not get a check. And if you filed taxes, if you owed the government, if there was some sort of lien like child support, zap, they took it. You didn't get your check. And if you already owed the government from a previous tax issue, guess what? Zap. And you know who those categories are, who's high in number in that? We are. So what did you get? Nothing. Zero. So where's your reparations? It's going to be in the second check that's coming, and you get nothing. Why? Because the Most High called this. He already called this. These false hopes and stuff like that. We have to stop this. What do you need to do? Get yourself together with the Most High God. Get back to his laws, statutes, and judgments and his commandments, and you might find some favor. That's what King Solomon's prayer was. Somebody says, don't forget to do the study on the wilderness. I did that, but I'm going to have to bring it back. Deborah says, Father God knows this is happening, but I can't pronounce. I apologize because I don't speak or read Hebrew, but I know what you're saying, my sister. It's coming. Because sometimes if you say the name wrong, the people use okay. I hope some brought their tickets for Ghana or so. Some people brought their tickets for Ghana or southern SoCal. Okay. Our so-called home. Okay. Yeah. People say it's time to go home. We're going to Africa. Where is home? Is it? But when you read the scriptures, it says, "I'm going to put you back into the land that was inherited for your fathers." Well, where is that at? That's why we did that lesson Friday night. It's Jerusalem. Where's the Most High going to set up his kingdom? In Jerusalem, on Mount Zion. Where is he going to rule from? Jerusalem. So everybody's trying to get back to Africa because we don't understand. In 1960s, in mid-1960s, and this is a true story, because people don't understand history. In the 1960s, there was a group that came out of Chicago, a large group. They came from other places, but majority of them, when they passed the Civil Rights Bill and the Jim Crow laws went away, they said, that's it, we're free. 400 years is over. And they had an earlier date. People today are using 1619, but in 1960s, in mid-60s, they had another date. And when the Civil Rights Law was passed by Lyndon Johnson, and you can now vote, there was equal rights, there was no more segregation, and people was like, it's time. And a group of people moved to Israel in Delma. They're still there today. Apparently, they didn't read Zechariah the 14th chapter. When the Lord says, I'm going to call all the nations to come up to Jerusalem, and the houses should be rifled, and the women shall be ravished before the Lord comes. Why is he bringing those nations against Jerusalem? Because he's clearing out his land. Then he turns around and he deals with the nations that he sent in after Jerusalem. It's all in the prophets. So had we read, we wouldn't have jumped the gun. You can't jump the gun on this. You got to read the scriptures. Got to read the scriptures. Got to read the scriptures. But thank you for your input, Sister Deborah. And then Brother Carl there. Brother Carl gave a scripture, Jeremiah 20:21. Say, I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, but yet they prophesy. Brother, I'm trying to figure out which one on YouTube do you follow? That's why I said, I'm not a prophet. I'm only giving you history. That's what I'm getting. We're going to get back into that. I'm only giving you the history. I'm telling you, based upon history, there's going to be a second wave. Let's read some more of that. For example, a New England Journal of Medicine study published this month found that 29 of 210 pregnant women arriving at New York Presbyterian Hospital, and they tested positive, yet had no symptoms. Our use of universal SARS-CoV-2 COVID-2 testing in all pregnant patients presenting for delivery revealed that at this time in the pandemic in New York City, most of the patients who were positive for SARS-CoV-2 at delivery were asymptomatic, the study concluded. Asymptomatic means had they not been tested, nobody would have known that they were positive for the SARS-CoV-2, which killed a lot of people when President Obama was here. And President Obama said, guess what? You need to go get ventilators because this thing is going to come back in a pandemic form. He said it. It was going to happen. And it did happen. Listen to this. It underscores the risk of COVID-19 among asymptomatic obstetrical patients. And I'm not a medical terminology student, so I probably tore that word up. Added the study, which was published earlier this month. Moreover, the true prevalence of infection may be underreported because of false negative results of tests to detect SARS-CoV-2. So when you have a false negative report, that means it's false because it's showing negative, and it's what they call a false negative report. So what lessons in immunity from the Spanish flu of 1918 can we learn? So what will happen if or when SARS-CoV-2, which causes the respiratory disease COVID-19, returns? We're just 14 weeks into this. So no one knows, Poland said, if it has a slight mutation. Listen to this. A slight mutation. In other words, it changes its makeup. It changes how it protects itself, just slightly, he added. The response of our antibodies will be moderately irrelevant. And I'm going to talk about that. Stand by. We'll be right back. Alrighty. So let's keep this thing rolling here. Let's go back into this real quick. So it's too early. Mutation, that's what I wanted to talk about. Because one thing I do know about communicable diseases and infections, what these viruses do, they're living microbiome, whatever you want to call them. Again, I tear words up when it comes to medical terminology. They're microorganisms, and these microorganisms have a life. They're alive. They are alive. Okay? They can only survive and live in certain environments. Hot environments, they don't live. We know that. Washing frequently before they enter into your nose, mouth, eyes, a cut on your hand. You wash your hands frequently and don't touch things and start eating it, because if somebody sneezes, that virus, that microorganism is still alive. The moment you eat that potato chip, you just ate that microorganism. And it can survive in your body, and it reproduces itself. It reproduces itself. But mutating is when it takes on a different nature to protect itself. That's what microorganisms do, because they want to live and they have a way of defending themselves. So you can come out with the one way that you need to deal with this virus, just from I'm not a scientist, but just common sense. If you can kill it before it spreads, or what we call a herd immunization. A herd immunization is meaning that more than a significant amount of the population has immunities to beat it. It's no longer spreading, and if it can't spread, it can't mutate. Every year, they have a different influenza, a strand of the flu. So the flu is never going away, because everybody doesn't take the flu shot. It continues to live and survive, but it takes on a different strand because it has mutated. So that's what this virus is going to do. But again, this is not a new virus. It's been COVID. And they call it COVID or corona because of its crown shape, but it's been here. As I told you all before, get a can of Lysol and just read on the back of that can what the germs that it kills. Look on the back of a can of Lysol and you will see coronavirus. Seriously, it's nothing new. Okay, so let's go down a little bit more. So we read here that if there's no antibodies, you're gonna, whatever it do is, if it mutates, it's going to be irrelevant. Okay, we can expect to have the same herd immunity. It says we cannot expect to have the same herd immunity or original antigenic sin, the ability of our immune systems to remember a virus that is similar but not the same as a previous version, as influenza. Influenza, after all, has been around for 500, if not 1,000 years. And why is it that your body cannot build up an antibody to it? Because it says your immune system cannot remember the virus that is something similar. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing, but it's the wolf. Your body doesn't pick up on that. Your immune system doesn't pick up on that. So because of that, the influenza continues to come around. It's been around for 500, if not 1,000 years. So during the great influenza pandemic of 1918, the age group that disproportionately died were young people, not older adults. Older adults had seen previews of this virus in early years, probably in the late 1800s, so they had immunological memory. So in other words, because they had it at an earlier age, when it did come, you did have antibodies built up against it. But the coronavirus, this particular virus, dealing with the corona, is a lot different. It's attacking everybody. Everybody. Let's read a little bit more here. The 1918 Spanish flu's second wave was even more devastating than the first wave. COVID-19 sweet spot could be October to May. That means October of this year to May of next year, people. So let's read why. There are similarities between influenza and SARS-CoV-2, and they have almost identical symptoms: fever, coughing, night sweats, aching bones, tiredness, nausea, diarrhea, in the most severe cases. Like all viruses, neither are treatable with antibiotics. Well, what do you mean they're not treatable? They're not. Your symptoms are treated, not the virus. Surprise? All you got to do is read. You cannot kill the virus. You can treat the symptoms, but you cannot kill the virus. So you got to build up your vitamin C, your vitamin D. You need to get out. You need to quit eating pork if you eat pork. You need to watch your habits that are not so good. Smoking is not good. It's not a sin, but it's not good for you. Drinking is not a sin, but you got to watch how much you consume, because these things break down, they impact your immune system. So you need to get out. You need to do some exercising. You need to start walking. So when the heat starts to deal with this COVID-19, get out and start walking. Start drinking more water. I had to do that. When I saw this COVID-19, let me tell you what I did right away. I was 233 pounds. Right away, I said, let me get myself on a diet. Because working in federal government for 30 years, I know. I've heard this before. I've seen this. I've been in seminars. I've seen it. It's always the same over and over and over and over. If you're not in good health, the flu can take you out. White, black, Japanese, red, Indian, it don't matter. If you're not in good shape, the flu will take you out. The COVID-19 is the same thing. It's the same thing. They're not trying to kill off black people, okay? The reason is that we have underlying conditions because we historically do not take care of our bodies. We don't go to the doctor. We don't trust the doctor. We don't trust nobody. We don't do nothing. Okay? If you don't trust the doctors, find a black doctor to go to. But this is our problem. We don't trust, and we continue to eat. We continue to eat the pork, the shrimp, the lobsters, everything God said don't eat, we eat. And those things have bacteria in them. And when you're going to catch it, the first time you go to the hospital with diabetics, as a diabetic, diabetic high blood pressure, first thing the doctors are going to say, stop eating pork, stop eating shellfish. They're going to tell you that. No ifs, ands, and buts. They're going to tell you certain things you can no longer eat. They're going to tell you that. And all you got to do is go back to the Bible and read it. It'll tell you. If we become obedient, we will stay on top of this. But on a serious note, I was 233 pounds, 5'11", too big. I'm down to 204 pounds now. And I'm going to go down to 195 if I can. I'm not finished. I'm watching what I eat. I'm watching how much I eat. I'm drinking plenty of fluids, and I'm getting out there walking. It's just that. This is nothing to play with. You're in the flesh. You can live holy all you want to. But if you fool around here overweight, as holy as you are, that virus gets in your body, it's going to take you out. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. So we need to do what the Lord say do. Modesty, doing everything. Overeating is a sin. It's a sin. So we're gonna help each other tonight. Okay, listen to this. So it says that the first wave, the second wave is going to be more devastating. So I'm only telling you this because they're basing this off of what happened with the Spanish flu. There are similarities between the influenza. I think I read that part. They both can be spread through respiratory droplets from coughing, sneezing, but they come from two different virus families. And ongoing research to develop a universal vaccine for influenza shows how tricky both influenza viruses and coronaviruses can be. The 1918 Spanish flu's second wave was even more devastating than the first wave. Something we got to know. It was more devastating. Historians believe that a more virulent influenza strand hit during a hard 3 months in 1918 and was spread by troops moving through Europe during the First World War. A mutated strand would be a worst-case scenario for a second wave of SARS-CoV-2 this fall or winter. What are you saying, Pastor? Well, it spread it by soldiers who were doing international travel. What do you think is going to happen when they say, open America back up, open the businesses back up? People are going to start traveling in and out, all over again. And when they do, you're going to carry a different strand, and it's going to hit hard. I'm not a prophet. I'm just reading you history. So the 1918 pandemic is forever associated with Spain. Listen to this. Let's read something here. The 1918 pandemic is forever associated with Spain, but this strand of H1N1 was discovered earlier in Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and the U.S. But similar to the Communist Party's response to the first COVID-19 in Wuhan, China, First World War censors buried or underplayed those reports. Why did they bury and underplay those reports? Because you can't report that your soldiers are sick. Because it gives the enemy too much information. It is essential to consider the deep connections between the Great War and the influenza pandemic, not simply as concurrent or consecutive crises, but more deeply intertwined. Let's keep going. A more virulent, mutated strand of the novel coronavirus would be a worst-case scenario by a second wave of SARS-CoV-2 this fall or winter. The British military medicine took a leading role in studying the public health response, he added. Domestic public health leaders did almost nothing to stem the spread of the pandemic due to the impact measures such as quarantine would have had on the war effect. So in other words, we're doing very little. We want you to go back to church. We want you to open up the beauty salons. I have parishioners, I have congregants, I have people that I love to see very dearly, but I love their life more. So this is why we're saying wait a few weeks, let the canary birds out, let's see who comes back and how many come back and how many don't. I hate to say it that way, but that's just the way it is. Another part, I'm going to look over in the chat room here, because again, you all are hanging in here. Carl says, Pastor, you were talking about those people who said God told them something, not that you told them something, not that you, okay, not you that are addressing. What were you talking about? Sorry for the misunderstanding. Well, if I'm understanding you correctly, I was talking about people who said on YouTube, you look at different channels and different people, they're having dreams and the Lord showed me, and some saying God said this is about the world order and they're trying to make a one world government, and this is they're lying to us. Another one said this is the first of 7 plagues. Somebody says this is plague number 5. So my point was, which one is it? Is it plague number 5? God told you it's number 5, but God said this person told them that it's 1 of 7. So which one is it? Who's telling the truth? That's my point. And the other point is, we don't have to look at a dream or a vision. If your dream or vision does not coexist with scriptures, then leave it alone. Don't put it out there. Matthew 24 tells you what this is about. So yeah, that's what I hope I added clarity to that, Paul. What do I think about us as Hebrew Israelites taking a vaccine? Let's talk about that. Very good point. Let me bring up something. How do I feel about us taking a vaccine? Well, I think you need to look at the history and make a decision. I think everybody needs to do some research and look at the impact of vaccines as they have been given out on a world level. This is not the first time that vaccines have been given out. During the smallpox, during the measles, during that era, everybody took vaccines. I remember my father was in the military. We grew up on a military base. And I remember it was in the 60s. It's in the late 60s. But when we got ready to go to school, I think it's back in 68, before you can be enrolled in school, you needed to have a vaccine. It was required by the school. And they wanted to make sure that you had your shots. And I remember going on the military base and we got shots in both arms. In fact, I still got my scars from those shots. And that was a vaccine it was either smallpox or measles. I can't think of which one it was. And it might have been both, who knows? So you need to look at that and look at the history of that and find out what the impact of it was. You need to do some research. You need to do some studying. A lot of things come to play. It's a personal decision. It's not a sin if you take a vaccine, and it's not a sin if you don't take a vaccine. Everybody's body is different. And I'm giving you an educated answer from a spiritual perspective, and I have to go by experience. This is not the first time. I'm older than most of you that's here and that follows me, and I'm telling you that we took vaccines back then. Would I take a flu shot now? No. Why? Okay, Pastor, why won't you take a flu shot? Because there's a great number of people that every time they take the flu shot, they end up at home with the flu for 2 days. And then next year, they put themselves through that again. They take the flu shot and they're home a day. Okay, I'm not taking a shot to protect myself that when I get the shot, I end up at home sick. And then if you look at the effects of it, it tells you the side effects. Thank God that the Most High makes the government at least reveal that information. That's why when you say, just look at the news. I mean, look at the commercials. Here's medication that will help this and that. But then they go right through. When they show you a pharmaceutical commercial about dealing with back pain or joint pain, and they got a medication, they will show you in a 1-minute commercial people riding on a bike and how good they feel. And then the other 45 seconds, when they're showing the family walking around and how good they feel and they jumping up and down, because that's marketing. They give you the initial part, and you look at the photos, and you're looking at, you subconsciously, you're still, what's going on in your mind, what you hear is what you're looking at what you have heard initially, and you don't hear the other 45 seconds. Trust me, it works. I have been in studies that prove that. So when you see that 15-second commercial that says, take this medication, it will definitely hurt your joints and take the swelling away and you'll feel good. And then the rest of the commercial, visually, you see the person riding the bike, rolling the boat, skiing, doing everything else. But if you cut the TV off and just listen, if you have this, or that, consult your doctor. This medication could cause this, that, boom, 10 things. But a lot of people miss that because they're concentrated on what they initially heard and what they're visually looking at. And the same thing with these vaccinations. You have to do some research on it. Now, I will tell you this. You have groups out there that are pro-vaccine groups, and you have groups out there that are anti-vaccine groups. And I will say don't listen to neither one of them because they both embellish their information. Both of them do. So you got anti-vaccine groups where they will show you where these childbirths took place as a result of this vaccination that the mother took. Now, does that happen? Yeah. Because some information was not given or there, whatever the case is. Then you got people who are pro-vaccinated people who will turn around and show you, look how many kids died as a result of not getting vaccinated. Are they telling the truth? Yes. But are the numbers that high? Probably not. But it's marketing. That's just how it works. So you need to evaluate the what are they using. You need to look at the ingredient of what they're using. You need to look up every word that particular, what the chemicals or whatever is in that particular shot. You need to look at it. You need to use the worldwide. We in a world era of technology. Do research on everything. My wife is good at that. She showed me something the other day that she says, do not buy this particular drink for our daughter anymore. It's one of those ones in the patch. She says, you see, when it has that word right there, she says, look up that word and look at the effects of too much of that, what it does. And you know what? She's right. It started with a T. I forgot what it was. And I looked at it, looked it up, and it's harmful. The candy, red number 4 or something like that. The candy that, the red juice and the candy number 4 and all like that. It is horrible. That red coloring is horrible. And the FDC knows it. They know it. And the side effects, if a lot of kids, it affects, and I'm talking about food. I'm not even talking about a vaccination. I'm talking about things that are more harmful than a vaccination. So that's why I said just simply do your studying, do your reading. And we got to do what we don't like to do as Hebrews, and that is reading. Reading is like kryptonite to us, like it is to Superman. We got to learn to read. Look up words that, if you don't know what the word means, look up that word. You know, it will give it to you, you know. And that's all I'm saying. So will I take a vaccination? I don't know. I know who's going to take the vaccination first. The military is. They're going to take that vaccination first. And I'm going to watch. So would I take it the first year, the second year, third year? If I go 4 or 5 years and the flu shot's been around, after a while I'll say, I don't need it. What do I need to do? Every year, I need to build up my vitamin D, my vitamin C. I need to make sure I'm in good health so I don't get the flu. I can tell you this year, my household, when we're usually sick during the beginning of the year, we weren't. Why? Because COVID-19 came and we already knew, wash your hands, do this, do that, wear your mask, have your gloves on. I'm the only one that goes outside to do shopping. I'm the only one that gets the mail. I'm the only one that, again, goes to all the needs. I'm the one that goes out. We will walk around the block. We will go outside. But my wife and daughter have not even been in a car since COVID-19. And we're going on, 2 months? They have not been in a vehicle. They are not leaving out of this driveway unless it's to walk around the block. That's it. And we haven't been sick. It's because I'm taking precautions outside the house, and my daughter is not at school catching the flu and the fever that she did last year that gets passed on to her mother or me, and vice versa. And we learn to wash our hands around the house with each other. So will I take a vaccine? Is it good to do? They're not new. People have done them before. I hope that answers your question, because some of this is not an easy answer. Sister Deborah says, I stopped taking the flu shot years ago. I don't think that they are honest about the makeup of these vaccines according to various reports and who they are as a people. You're absolutely right. This is why you don't read. You have to read. I agree with you, Sister Deborah. You got to read. You got to read these reports. We need herbs. Dr. Sevi has a lot of information on herbs. Yes, his family's here in South Florida, and I agree. I would tell you one of the things that I take and we don't get back to, some things that if we go back to our grandmothers used to do things that our parents didn't do, because grandmama and them, they just knew. I called it grandmama and them. We took cod liver oil. Cod liver oil. And if I go, it wasn't my grandmother, it was my parents. I remember going into school. My father said, boy, you starting school this year. You got to take some cod liver oil. The nastiest stuff that you can ever imagine. You take the cod liver oil, and it comes from a fish, the cod liver oil. Cod is a fish. And it will, oh my gosh, it had an oily, fishy taste. But let me tell you something, it did miracles. So we need to get back into that kind of stuff instead of taking shots and all of these medications. My wife did something today. She's a person that does not like chemicals. She doesn't like household chemicals because she's done a lot of studying and reading, and she's looked at where a lot of this stuff is the cause of cancer. In fact, if you read the products themselves and go to the manufacturer's website, they'll tell you for more important information, go to our website. First of all, how many people read that fine print on a canister? That's number one. Number two, how many people, if you read it, actually go to the website? Well, when you go to the website, it gives you a whole bunch of information. A whole bunch of information. I used to use something called that kills the weeds. And then all of a sudden it causes cancer. Well, I had to stop using it. I said, I didn't contract anything or catch anything. And I always made sure that I didn't inhale the spray. But what I'm saying is that it caused cancer. And everybody, you see these commercials. If you've been using Roundup and you have contracted this type of cancer, please call our law firm. You could be entitled. Okay? It's the truth. It's really the truth. So you have to do some reading and research before you jump out there. I'm getting back to these household chemicals. My wife came, and I went out today, and I came back, and I looked at the floor. It had a nice, my wife cleans the floor the old-fashioned way. We have a towel floor. And she uses vinegar and water. She doesn't like for me to use chemicals on the floor when I use it because it makes the house smell. She says, please, I'm asking you, don't use that stuff. I know you like to, but I don't. I don't use it because that stuff causes cancer. Well, I don't live in a house by myself. So I say, I give in. Why do I give in? Because my objective is to clean the floor. But her way is better. I'm telling you it's better because the floor looks better. It's cleaner, and I don't smell this detergent type of spray. Those aerosols cause cancer. And if you look at their websites, they admit to it. Here's the other problem. Everybody's talking about 5G. 5G causes coronavirus. Brothers and sisters, 4G, 3G, 2G. This cell phone period causes issues. So one day, I decided when I got a new phone, this happens to be 4G, but when I had a 3G, I decided I'm going to read. What are they saying in all of this stuff? And you get your phone, you're so happy to get it, and it says, here are the terms, and they're long, right? And you scroll, I don't even read it. This particular time I did. And you just scroll up because you got that new iPhone. You want to get it going real quick. And you hit that check button and you says, I accept to the terms of this agreement. So your phone will cut on and you can get going. And you really start concentrating on your phone. Well, that agreement, I read it. And it says, do not talk long periods of time. And long periods of time, 5 to 10 minutes is the most, depending on your health condition. This is what it said. So we strongly recommend that if you're going to be on the phone for longer periods of time, use a listening device, i.e. Bluetooth or headphones, earplugs. Like, I don't have some, I have some dropped on the floor. These. Use these. If you're going to talk on the phone long enough, do this. Why did they say that? Because long radiation to attach to your body will cause radiation that leads to cancer. Do not leave your cell phone in your lap. Told men next to your growing area, because it could cause cancer and it could impact on you having the ability to reproduce. I'm telling you, it's right there. It's right there. It's in the phone. So it's not 5G. The same language is in 5G or 4G. And just so you know, 5G is less waves, by the way. And 5G has nothing to do with your phone, by the way. Just so you know, 5G technology, you don't need a phone. I did something on that a long time ago. I don't want to talk about that tonight, but I'll do it at another time. So yes, that's what I wanted to bring up. Thank you, Pastor. Do you think they will force the COVID-19 vaccination when it comes available? LOL. My siblings and I took that awful tasting stuff. Would I think that they will force us to do it? Indirectly, yes. Indirectly, yes. And here's what I mean by that. I think that if the vaccination is safe to take without causing certain side effects, yes, indirectly they will force you to take it. And here's why I mean that. Before you go into the military, they're going to force you to take it. If you take a first responder's job, they're going to force you to take it. When I worked for public government, I had to take a vaccination that was called the protection against hepatitis B and C. And the vaccination, they said, would last up to 10 years based upon their study. It could last longer. And I had to take the vaccination. I had to take it. It was a series of shots. It was required. So I did it. I took it. I'm still here. So the job required it. If you apply at a certain university, the university would say, a part of our whatever is that you must take this vaccination. So yes, indirectly, they could make you take it. So can you avoid it? Well, find a job that doesn't force you to take it. So indirectly, yes, they can. Back in the late 60s, they says, listen, before you enroll, we want to see that your child had shots. And they do that today, by the way. Today they do that, okay? If you have a kid that's starting school for the first time, my daughter's 9, but when she was 6, there were certain shots that she had to take before the school would let her in. And so yes, and yes. Deborah says, it's so sad, but those who are in rulership has basically destroyed all aspects of this world. Second Ezra, wickedness. She's quoting the verse and from the Apocrypha. Sister Terrell says, I do, Pastor. I've been in remission now for 3 years. I read all the fine print and side effects from my meds. We have to read I'm sorry here. I have this set up where it only lasts for 15 seconds. I have read and gained knowledge. Our lives depend on it. Yes, she's talking about our lives depend on reading the information. Let me see here. Somebody just put in, D. Carlos says, this vaccine will rewrite your RNA. Never been approved for humans. I don't know that much about the, and I think he says DNA will rewrite your DNA, or unless there's an RNA. But I understand that it can change some things. Maybe so. I don't know that vaccines would do that. I heard somebody say the other day, oh, they want everybody to take this vaccine because that's the mark of the beast and it's going to put a chip inside of you. I don't know where people get this was, I mean, seriously, I heard a Hebrew say this, somebody who teaches that we're the people of the book. That vaccination that they give you is going to have a chip inside of it. And that's the mark of the beast. People, I can't agree with that. I'm sorry. Some things is just nonsense that I can't, it just really kills me to repeat it because it's buffoonery. It really is. It's buffoonery. So when it comes to the vaccination, do a lot of reading, look at what's in it, know your body, look at what the side effect is, and weigh the pros and cons, and take the path of the best possibility for survival for you and your family. That's the best information that I can give you. Somebody says Google ID 2020. ID 2020. Okay, let's Google that. I'll do it for you there, brother. Let's Google that. Let's go Google that. ID 2020. I don't know what that is, but let's Google it. I'm in. So let's go over here to Google and let's see what that is. ID 2020. ID 2020. Digital Identity Alliance. Let's read it here. An approach that is holistic, market-based, and addresses the full scope and scale of the challenge. And it says here, let me make this smaller for you all so you can read it here. It says ID 2020 is building a new global model for the design, funding, and implementation of digital ID solutions and technology. There is no other multi-stakeholder effort focused on user management, privacy protection, and portable digital ID. And ad hoc investments and single-use case projects, business as usual, will be sufficient to bring about transformative impact. Changing the flow of funds is necessary to align incentives. That's why alliance partners are pooling funds to invest in programs that consider digital identity ID holistically as a platform for diverse benefits, services, and use cases through an individual's life. Private sector engagement is critical for solving at scale. Alliance partners include companies with a collective footprint in the billions and a shared commitment to an ethical approach to digital ID. Decisions about how alliance funds, okay, let me skip down here. Check who the partners are. Well, they are Microsoft, Rockefeller Foundation, IDEO.org, who's this other one? Accenture. Let's keep seeing who these other partners are. The Alliance, a collaborative effort of global partners, is solving for scale from day one. Well, let's see what their mission is here. That might give us a little bit more information here. because I'm going to tell you what just by what I know off of that one subject, where it's talking about ID footprint, where it says here, digital ID solutions. And let me see, before I make a comment on it, I want to go to another one. What does ID 2020 mean? Well, let's read it. It says, let me make it smaller for you all over here. And let's take it over a little bit. ID 2020 is a non-governmental organization which advocates for digital ID, undocumented people worldwide, and for advocates for digital ID for the billion. So we got to make it even smaller here so you all can read it. And thank God for this software that we're using here, and we can do stuff like this. And I really want to thank you all as contributors, that when you do give to our congregation, this is what we do. This is what we do when we utilize funds in our social media ministry. So ID 2020 is a non-governmental organization which advocates for digital ID for the billion undocumented people worldwide and underserved groups like refugees. The NGO, which is the non-governmental organization, was relatively unknown before being publicized because of misinformation related to the 2019-2020 coronavirus pandemic by conspiracy theorists. So right away, let me tell you right off the bat, this digital ID, is something that came about, let me tell you how many years ago. Digital ID came out about, I would say, 12 to 15 years ago. And what they did was Microsoft gave me a test item. And they said, hey, listen, we know that because I buy a lot of computer software and products like that. And because I did, they reached out to me and say, we have a new product, and it's a digital ID. It's a platform for a digital ID that we're working on. And we want to see if you like it and give us your feedback. And we like to give some to your organization, and they're free, they're no cost to you, and we take full responsibility, and we'll send a rep down, but they're free. We want you to use it at work, at home, and would you consider to do it? So yes, we said yes. I said yes. It was a gadget that was about, I'd say, I'm going to show this to you. It was about this big from here to here. And it had a little glass on it just like this. And it had a cord that had a USB, and it connected to the back of your computer. And it was called Digital ID. And you put your finger here, and it reads your fingerprint, so your computer locked. And when your computer locked, it would only open up with your fingerprint. And it was software, and they were testing it out, and it was designed to protect your digital data information. That's what it was there for. And so Microsoft, there were several other corporations that was partnered with it, and they said that what they're going to be doing, they wanted to see what we felt about it and to write a review on it, and that they would give us any upgrades that they do over the next 5 years. And we did. I continued to do reviews, and I got the latest ones. And the latest one that I dealt with was it was attached to a keyboard. And when you come in, like you have your keyboard here, well, on the keyboard, there was a little thing like this, and it was a part of the keyboard. When you come in, you put your finger over it, and the computer would unlock. It would go into sleep mode, and then it would unlock. Well, they wanted to use it. When I read up on the companies, they were doing a prototype to read your eyes. To read your eyes, because like you have a fingerprint, your eyes have a print that's only attached to one person. So it's not only. So at that time, they realized that DNA was something that was coming out 10 to 15 years ago, and it got its validity that it could only be attached to one person, just like a fingerprint can and just like the eyes can. So I have something that's called Clear when I fly. I have pre-TSA and I have Clear. And some airports I go to, I look in the goggles, and then when I look at it, they say, just look at the dot, and then my picture comes up. They say, okay, you're clear to go, Mr. Johnson. And I don't even have to go through TSA. They said, go ahead. I said, no, you don't need to show them anything. That's what Clear does. With the known traveler number with TSA, you got to show your ID. But with Clear, you don't. So it's digital ID. Now, what they're saying here is that some people, conspiracy theorists, because of misinformation, the NGO was relatively unknown before being publicized because of misinformation related to the 2019-20 coronavirus pandemic. Okay, so number one, whatever I hear about this company, there is a couple websites that would tell you if something is true or not. Look at it. So whatever information that you think that you may be getting, I know what digital ID is. It's not related to the coronavirus. When was ID 2020 founded? It launched in 2017. Well, I can tell you that the word digital ID was before 2017. The ID 2020 Alliance has grown rapidly over the past 3 years and now includes over 13 partners. So maybe it has evolved to what they really wanted to do now. So let's continue to read. ID 2020 is unique in its philosophy and transparent governance. ID 2020 is building a new global model for design, funding, and implementation of digital ID systems and technologies. Okay. What is your digital identity? Well, that's important to know. So let's look at that. Your digital identity consists of various pieces of information about you in digital form that, when put together, point to you. And even if you take every possible precaution, a data breach at a company with whom you do business could possibly result in identity theft. What's your digital identity? LifeLock, okay. Why is an ID important? How can I find my digital ID? Okay. So yeah. Let me say this, because let me just say this about 5G. 5G, when they put up the antennas, you're going to have what they call a 5G zone. Certain cities is going to be like Beijing, China. In Beijing, China, right now, in Beijing, China, you can walk inside of it, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and yes, they have Kentucky Fried Chickens in Beijing, China. And when you walk inside, there is a camera that picks up your digital identity. So when you go to the restaurant, they'll say, Good day, Mr. Johnson. What would you like to have? The cashier is saying your name because when you walked in, it did facial recognition and it identified you. Now, that technology has been out for 10 years. I can tell you that because I've seen it. And it was being improved upon. It was about 10 years ago when I saw a review on it, and I saw how the technology worked. And it was here at a football game. If I'm not mistaken, it was the Super Bowl game when the New Orleans Saints played. So if anybody knows how long ago that was, then you know what I'm talking about. It was a New Orleans Saints and somebody else. But anyway, so they were showing demos to certain people in government jobs, and what they had people who they had in certain seats for the demo, and they said, now this camera is going to be looking for this individual, and we have them, they have a seat, and we've inputted their information, and the camera is going to scan the audience, and when it sees that person, it's going to give you an alert. And because you had a football stadium, it will even tell you what seat that they are sitting in. In fact, they was trying to sell it, do the demo for the NFL. And so, sure enough, this camera, digital camera, scanned the crowd, and it started picking up people very quickly, scattered about. And that was the demo. And sure enough, it told you what seat those individuals were in. And when they looked at their roster, they said, yeah, he's in that seat. Yeah, she's in that seat. And it picked them up. And that's what digital facial recognition did. It's evolved to bigger than that today. I can tell you, read some of the magazines and you can see what it does. So when you come in to a restaurant in Beijing, it already has you. In fact, digital ID is here today. If you download an app like a Chick-fil-A app like I do, it automatically pulls up. I pull up my app, and it tells me where my nearest Chick-fil-A is, and it says, would you like to get your same order that you got last time? Because it's tracking me what I do. I'll give you another one. You got your phone and you read it, but you quickly said, I agree, and certain services you didn't cut off. Well, certain words it picks up based upon your location of where you are. So I went to my battery remote for my key, was not working, and my car says, change your battery soon. My car said that, change your battery soon. Well, I have an app on my phone for my car. And so when I went to CVS, I went into the battery section. I was in that aisle, and I pulled up my Google, and I put down CA. CA is all I put down. How about car battery remote battery for key fob for battery came up and told me what type it was. Now that's not scary, that's just technology. That's just technology, and that's what it did that quick. But because I do a lot of reading, I knew where it came from. It came from my app and my map and where I was at, and it came up, and it just assumed that my buying habit, he's going in there to look for a battery, and it told me what aisle it was on and everything, and I picked it up and got in line. Just that quick. I mean, that's what my phone did. That's what my smartphone did. And that happened, I would say, beginning of February that happened. And I started telling people about it, man. Guess what my phone did? Is that crazy or what? I mean, yeah, it does it. Because I have my maps location. If I'm driving, a message will come up and says Starbucks has a sale. You're eligible. It lures you in. That's what 5G is. That's what it's going to be on a bigger level. So in Beijing, you can walk out on the sidewalk. You don't need your phone. 5G has nothing to do with your phone. You walk out on the sidewalk and you say, Uber. And the cameras that in the 5G zone, it's listening and watching everybody. It's watching your face. It's doing everything. It picks you up. It knows everything it's going to do. So when I say come out in Beijing, you say Uber, the Uber comes and you'll have a certain spot and the driver sees you because the car has alerted them because it's a 5G city. Beijing, China is a 5G city. That's what it is. And it has nothing to do with your phone. It's phone-less. You don't need the phone to be under the 5G system that they are now deploying. The issue with 5G is that you have groups out there that are they are against the government privacy. They are privacy rights groups. So these privacy rights groups are saying, when this COVID-19 came out, hey, guess what they're doing? It's the 5G network that brought on this virus. Now, how do I know that? Because I've seen these groups, these advocates who are pro privacy. Go to the website, and if you can get in the back door, which is easy to do, if you're giving like $5. You'll see what their strategies are. And they say, our strategy is to blame everything on this virus. I kid you not. So they blame it on the virus. So that makes people say, we don't want 5G. And so they have people tearing down 5G. Now, why do these privacy groups doing that? Because they don't want the government to follow them and know what they're doing 24/7. Because America's Constitution says that you have a right to privacy. And 5G takes away your right for privacy. So all the government has to do, and they can do that today, by the way, that kid who got arrested, who got shot, Ahmaud Arbery, all the government has to do is say, I want to know all of the cell phones that were pinging in that area that day. And they will let them know because everybody has their cell phone on. You can forget about cutting off your location services. If you got your phone on, it knows where you are. It knows where you have been at. I kid you not. This was when 3G was out. 3G. The problem is that the military has it, and back 10 years ago, they would not give up the information unless it became a high-profile case. So y'all remember the guy, Peterson, who killed his wife? Well, they had her body. He had a cell phone. But the locals could not get it took an arm and a leg for them to get the military to say, let us know if his cell phone was pinging and what area when that body got taken up there. And yes, that's how they caught it. That's how they caught it. Now you can go back and read it because that technology has been revealed that they can do that. But back then when that Peterson case came out, they didn't want everybody to know that. No. Even the FBI, no. Y'all got to try to get this guy some other way. But we're not going to give up that technology for a murder case. I'm telling you. I'm just being very honest with you. They know. It's just Google and all of these people. They're not giving up that right. They're not you need to get a search warrant, and even with a search warrant, Google is not going to give up that information. Apple is not going to give up that information. They're not knowingly, by the way. So that guy, Ahmaud Arbery, who got killed, I guarantee you that video went to every head Klansman in that Georgia area, and you can see their comments of what they made. I'm telling you, if they really wanted to know, they could. You remember the case that was up in, where was it at, Virginia? Cobham, Virginia, when all of those people came up there and they did all that. They were killing each other like it was a civil war. Those guys were the same guys who were out in Seattle causing trouble. That's what they do. They travel, and the government knows who they are. They just don't want to reveal the technology, and they know what they're doing, but they don't want to reveal that technology. They can easily find out who every white supremacist is by looking at where their meetings are. If they know what geographical area the meetings are, and everybody carries their cell phone, because nobody's going to cut off their phones. They're going to leave them cell phones on, and they can say, you want to know who all the Klansmen are? Find out where their meeting is, and you want to know who they are? I don't care if they're wearing masks. Look what cell phones were pinging in the area, all in that little group of room right there. They can identify all of them. They really can. They're just not trying to. I had fun with you all tonight. I really did. And you all, man, we still got a lot of people in the chat room. I want to go over here to the chat room now. Thank you, Pastor Johnson, for answering both questions. You're welcome, brother. Listen, like I said, it's 1 o'clock, but I'm going to go do some other stuff when I get off. D. Carlos, check the partners. I did that. Google quantum dot something. Quantum dot tattoo. A quantum dot tattoo. Brother D. Carlos, you need to be here with me tomorrow night. We're going to do that tomorrow night. And don't forget, I appreciate you being here too. Pentecost, when will you teach on it? Thank you. I'm going to hit Pentecost on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. This week, we're going to hit on Pentecost. And on Sabbath, we're going to go back to our regular schedule. I'm going to be teaching at 1 o'clock. It's going to be on Pentecost. And Sunday, on the day of Pentecost coming up this week, I'm going to be teaching at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. And then we're going to be tuning in for Pastor Bowie's message at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Pastor, I've been in remission for 3 years now. Oh, that's Sister Terrell Ann. Sister Terrell Ann, I can't wait to meet you coming down, but all of this corona stuff. You're welcome, D. Carlos. So I had a good time with you all tonight. Wanted to take some time to do this because I'm off, and I told you we were going to do it. So what I read tonight, that's how I do my reading. There are certain groups, and brother, what D. Carlos said that he does, he checks out the partners. I do that. And I look at the backgrounds of everybody. I looked at the comment that everybody said Gates made. He did make the comment, but it was taken out of context that we need population control. There is a news network called RT, and I tell you what it stands for. It stands for Russian television, but it's called RT something. It's reliable. The anchor is named Rick Sanchez. Rick Sanchez worked for Channel 7 here in South Florida for years. He was very good in reporting, very honest in reporting. He got drafted by CNN News. But Rick Sanchez, I knew that his personality, he grabs a lot of viewers, but you can't control him when it comes to reporting. And so CNN couldn't control him, and they fired him. He got picked up by RT News Now, which stands for Russian television. But let me tell you, he does thorough research and he gives it to you like it is. That's one of my sources that I go to. Another source is these medical periodicals. They have nothing to lose or they have nothing to gain. They have nothing in the fight of anything. They are research groups. They can't be bought. They can't be persuaded because a lot of them are done by what they call fellows and professors who are tenured. And once you're tenured, you can't be fired because of your research, because you don't say what somebody wants you to say. So that's what we call reputable references. So look at those and stuff like that. There's another guy, it's called Valuetainment. He is a financial advisor, but he interviews a lot of interesting people. Valuetainment. He has a YouTube channel. He's American, but he's got his citizenship. He's Iranian. But check him out. He was in the military. He's American, but like I said, his family had to flee Iran. They stood up against the government. But check him out. He's really a financial guy, but he brings a lot of people that are very reputable, who he gives some hardline questions too. So Valuetainment, I'm talking about on YouTube that I look at. Government entities, I don't too much trust, because if you just look at what happened, even with the lady that was putting out the stats for, I forgot what government agency, but she got fired and she whistleblowed. They want me to make the numbers lower. And they said, no, that's not what we did. And there's always two sides to the story. So if you notice that the coronavirus was going down, and it's because when they were doing their reporting, the statistics, they were getting them from multiple sources. Well, what they told her to do was no longer consider certain sources to get data from. And she felt that that was unethical. And the reason why she felt that it was unethical was because if I've been given my report coming from 5 locations, and now you want to take 2 of them off and want me to report only on 3 of them, then give me the reason why. And they said, that's not your job. Your job is to report on the 3. We're not taking numbers from these 2 organizations anymore. And that's her story. And she refused to do it. She says, no, I'm not going to lie to the people. And she says, unless you tell me why. I read the whole story. and unless you tell me why. And they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't tell her why they wanted her. And I'm giving you an example. You're getting your statistic numbers from 10 sources. They said, we're going to get them only from 7 now. She wanted to know why. She says she says certainly it's going to make the numbers lower because I'm not getting them from 10, I'm getting them from 7. Well, when you read the inside as to why, so the stats didn't move for about 2 weeks. I don't know if you looked at it. The stats stayed the same, and it said pending, update pending. And it's because they fired her. She went to the media, and she says they're trying to force me to fudge the numbers. And of course, the news media gets anything like that, they are rolling with it. But when you talk to the organization that hired the lady who was in charge to putting out the stats, they said 3 of the agencies they felt was not providing reliable numbers, and that the way that they were doing their reporting, they could no longer include them. Well, when they asked what 3 of the, I'm using this as an example, what 3 of the 10, they wouldn't give them that information. And they says, that's been investigated. We can't talk about that now. So they didn't give the information out. And so they got somebody else, and the numbers started to come back in again. And they also said that we are now doing their job, the other 3, in-house. So it wasn't that we wasn't collecting the data, it's just those 3 groups, we were not relying on them anymore. So they said, but the information continued to come in. And the numbers going down are factual. It's just we did not owe it to an employee at that level to give that type of explanation to. So the story kind of went away now. And the website is now giving out information. So I will tell you the most reliable source to get the coronavirus numbers from is Johns Hopkins University. Why Johns Hopkins University? Because Johns Hopkins University gets a lot of money from outside groups to do research and tracking and polls and stuff like that. And they got so much money in those areas, they don't have no dog in the fight. So that's why, based upon that, I'd say that is a reliable research data information group, Johns Hopkins University. So take the time to do the reading. It will open up your eyes to certain things. I spend 70% of my time doing biblical research and study, and I spend the other 20% on following politics, and 10% on just that stuff that I talk to you. Who can I determine who's reliable when I'm getting my information? So just to let you know how I go about getting my information. So as we end out, I just wanted to share that with you. We're not going to have a long playlist tonight, but what we're going to do is play the same young ladies that started us tonight, 3 Before Joy. Check them out, and we're going to bring in Ross Servin again. I like this brother. I reached out to him. We're going to be doing an interview of him. We're going to be setting it up when he's free. So we're going to do Brother Nico. I'm trying to get Brother Nico Williams to come in. So I'm also working on him and to get him in on the table as well. So just wanted to let y'all know that. That's what we're doing. So our playlist tonight is very short tonight. Let me move some things out of the way so we can bring some of this in here. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight, okay? So let me start this so we can get to it, and I end out, and you all enjoy yourselves. It's certainly been a pleasure to be with you tonight. I've certainly enjoyed all of you all, and thank you very much. I'm just looking at the playlist to move it around to get it where we need to get it at, and we're going to get out of here. I will be here tomorrow night. I will definitely be here tomorrow night, so tune in and come on and join in.
Okay, shalom to all the viewers, and I thank you for tuning in again for another powerful and profound message.
I didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. I hit the button by mistake. But again, tomorrow night, I will see you tomorrow night, maybe early, and we're going to join in. So that being said, my brothers and sisters, peace and shalom to you.
Sometimes I think we fail to recognize the weight of Christ's sacrifice because of the state that sin puts us in. If we could see how dirty and how unworthy we are in comparison to how pure and how holy He has always been. If the wages of sin is death and I rebel against God one time, there's this mortal debt that I owe. And if God has set His face against sin, then that makes me His eternal foe. And our good God is actively fighting against anything that is bad, evil, or wrong. So what side of that board does your sin leave you on? And the wrath of God is coming, and there is no amount of good deeds that will ever save when you know that deep down you can't even get your heart to behave. You still struggle with your addictions to alcoholism and pornography. You're not satisfied with your singleness. You're tempted to step outside your marriage, and you don't even want to obey your parents. It's like no matter how good I try to be, I still find sin inside of me. And in our sin, we reject God and we smack Him in the face, and we find anything else to take His place, and we stack sin on top of sin, on top of sin, on top of sin. But God in His mercy matches that with grace upon grace upon grace upon grace. When He would have been well within His means to leave you alone in the first place, to abandon you a long time ago, but God is not a man to demand what you would owe. Instead, He sends the King of this world as perfection, the great I am that I am, without spot or blemish, to become the perfect sacrificial lamb. And the nails of your rebellion were pounded into His hands and His feet on the cross. Our spiritual freedom don't come free. Yes, it comes at a cost. And the Son of God was crucified because of the sins that you chose. But 3 days later, my Savior, He rose, just to prove to the devil that death can't bother the author of life, and to show that the mess that man makes, Christ makes it right. Now we all know we're not perfect, but God stands up and says, no, my child, I still think you're worth it. Can we pause for a moment and think about what that means? That the King of Kings would love you more than anything. He says, I will give you my life so you can understand my love and how I have loved you from the very beginning. That's why I'm sending my Son even though you keep sinning. That's why believers get excited at the mention of a third day, because our sins were flattened by the boulder that He rolled away. And the enemy is big mad because I ain't living the life that He made for me, and Jesus' death means new life that He gave to me. I was saved to see that death ain't got no grave for me. So when Jesus said it was finished, His work diminished the sins of my past through something that I can never add to. And a Jesus that died for my sins means that I will never have to. And if you're tracking with what I'm saying, then there's a question I gotta ask you. Do you believe what Jesus did for you, or have you allowed it to wash right over your head? Because the truth of Easter means that when you should have died, Jesus took that for you instead. Salah.
There will be mountains I would have to climb, and there will be battles
battles I would have to fight. But victory or defeat, yeah, it's up to me to decide. But how can I expect to win if I never try?
I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I've started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe He's brought me this far to leave me. Never said there wouldn't be trials. Never said I wouldn't fall. Never said that everything would go the way I wanted to go. But when my back is against the wall and I feel all hope is gone, I just lift my head up to the sky and say, help me to be strong. Oh, I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe He's brought me this far to leave me. No, You didn't bring me out here to leave me lonely, even when I can't see clearly. I know that You are with me, so I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe He's brought me this far to leave me. You did not create me to worry. You did not create me to fear. But You created me to worship daily. So I'ma leave it all right here. My hands are raised because I surrender. Your will is what's best for me. I worship You because You're Jehovah Jireh. I bow before the King of Kings. No more crying, no more complaining. I believe Your word is true. Lord, You promised never to leave me lonely. So this is what I'm going to do. I will trust in You, Lord. I will trust in You, Lord. I will put my trust in You. I will trust in You, Lord. I will trust in You, Lord. I will put
Love, as I have loved you. What does that really mean? Sometimes it's hard to understand what Jesus meant when he said it, because in the world that we live in, people love us based on circumstance or preference. Like, if I like what you like, you'll like me. Or if I do what you do, you'll accept me. Yet the one that should have rejected me because I wasn't at all like him didn't. Matter of fact, in spite of my imperfections, failures, and flaws, Christ saw something in me that was worth reconciling back to him. So it's no longer I who live, but he who lives through me, and gives me the courage to fearlessly love you, despite what you do to me, or how you treat me, at my job, at my school, at my church, even in my own family. So let's not view each other in light of our earthly stature, but more as Christ's ambassadors, showing the world that we who are once blinded to this love have tasted this love and lived to share his love. I believe this, and only this, will help put an end to hate and animosity. It ain't no wishful thinking, man. It's his philosophy. And prayerfully, it's our democracy. That if we did, it would change everything.